It's time for Windows Weekly, the biggest patch Tuesday of 2025. We'll have the deets. We'll also talk about a new way to invoke Copilot. No, you don't have to say it 3 times. And why, if Microsoft just made $70 billion, did they lay off 6,000 employees? All that and more coming up next on Windows Weekly.
Podcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is Twit.
This is Windows Weekly with Paul Thurrott and Richard Campbell, episode 932, recorded Wednesday, May 14th, 2025. The Last Australian. It's time for Windows Weekly. Get ready, winners and dozers. The show that you wait for all week long. Paul Thurrott is here from Thurrott.com. Richard Campbell from RunAsRadio.com. And they're both in their respective United States abodes. No.
Well,
they're both in their
yet.
North American abodes.
Not yet. We'll get you yet, buddy.
Paul's in Macungie, right?
Sorry.
We'll get you yet. Yeah, no, say that.
I'm in the mood to add 50 new provinces. I've got this idea.
Yeah, I far prefer that to the other.
If you could just take a few of the better ones, I'd be happy to join along in that escapade.
And as your fine new PM said, Canada's not for sale. Okay,
hardly enough. I like that he said.
To which Trump said, everything is a price.
To the owners, they're not selling.
I love that. That was so good. Richard Campbell is here. He is from British Columbia, actually. You're right. You're home, right?
I'm home.
Yeah, he's in Madeira Park, BC.
I'll give you the view. You want the
let's see
view?
the view. Let's see the loons, Harry. Oh, it's beautiful.
You can see it's spring.
Wait. I want to show you my view, actually, since we're doing this. This is my view.
Here's Paul's view.
It's it looks like I'm in a sewer.
Are you sealed in? Did they seal you in?
It's not ideal.
What happened?
I don't know. I'm in a cave. This is my natural habitat.
It makes you want to go home, doesn't it? To Mexico City, doesn't it? It makes you want to back.
I mean, this room is bigger than that entire apartment. But yeah, I mean, other than that,
there's pros and cons. At least you're not stapled in.
That's true.
What is that drywall? What is it? Or it's just a curtain?
No, it's just a
together?
curtain or whatever you call it, drapes over the giant window here. Otherwise, it's either too dark or too bright. Those are my choices.
Right. Oh, I see. Yeah. So when the show's over, you rip it open.
No, I leave this as it is. What I do is I walk outside of here, and then I'm usually not in this room.
No,
right. This is like I'm having a timeout. This is my punishment room.
Every Wednesday, Paul goes to the punishment
3 hours of rage.
Yes, you use, Richard, your office for anything but the shows?
No, absolutely, no. But this setup is for streaming and recording, and then beside me is the writing machine.
Oh, you have
no pop-ups or anything like that.
Yeah, I have. In theory, I have a desk behind over here that is my theoretical desk.
Yeah,
I'm rarely in this office. This up in the attic. I'm leaving it open today because we have a new kitty cat.
Yep,
and we replaced the old model.
We upgraded.
We upgraded with a young model, and but we also have the house cleaners coming, and we're not sure how she's going to react to the vacuum.
Oh, so, that's fair.
And Lisa's not here.
We got a puppy now too.
That's
more
right.
Chaos.
That's exciting. Yeah, Lisa and her son went to the Giants game.
Oh,
so fantastic. I got the house to the cat and I have the house.
You have the house to yourself. What are you doing here?
Yeah, that's a good question. What would you do?
You should have popcorn mounted on your chest, watching some terrible movie.
Sit around in your boxer shorts like Tom Cruise in Risky Business. Sing along to songs. Those were the days when I was young. You want to see the kitty? You want to see? I have a little picture of the kitty I can show you. She's on the stairs. She's watching. She's watching from a distance. She's a beautiful little cat. Rosie is her name. Kitty. Yeah. Sweet little kitty. So I say all that because I want you to prepare you gird your loins, my friends, because it is the biggest. What to my loins?
Nice.
It is the biggest patch Tuesday of 2025.
I mean, there's only been 4 before today, but still.
Okay. How big is it, Paul?
It's really big, Leo. Thank you for asking. Also, the name of your sex tape. Sorry, I can't stop doing that.
Okay.
No, it's because this is when Recall in preview and Click to Do also in preview are actually in stable, right? Last 2 weeks ago, they were in stable, but in a preview update that not everyone would get. But now you're getting it whether you want it or not, assuming, of course, you have a Copilot Plus PC. So this is it. So 1 year ago, almost to the week, right? Microsoft announced Copilot Plus PC as a platform. They announced the first Surface devices and some OEM devices, and they announced Recall as the marquee feature, which a year later, by the way, hilarious.
Nice. Yeah, almost on the wire. It was the last build.
I feel comfortable saying that after several months of testing, I never need to see that feature again, and it has nothing to do with privacy or security. I just don't need it. But maybe you'll like it. Which is the most condescending thing you can say to anybody. Oh, that's terrible. I mean, you might like it.
But that still requires a Copilot Plus PC, which means a laptop.
No, nobody. Yeah, basically. Yeah. So, Click to Do, by the way, actually very interesting. I think the Copilot Vision stuff is very interesting. The improved Windows search, which we need a better name for, which is that semantic indexing, also very interesting, potentially, and we'll see. And then other stuff. I mean, there's the integrated phone companion, that panel on the side of the start menu, which I have to say, first time I saw that, it looked like a cancerous growth to me, but I use PhoneLink all the time now, and it's because it's gotten a lot better, and especially if you have an Android phone. And it's actually really handy. Like, it's nice. So you have this kind of instead of running the full app, you can access a lot of the key actions that you might do with PhoneLink through that interface, including sharing files back and forth or looking at photos, whatever it might be. So it's nice. And then some small things, but like Microsoft saying that they changed the home screen in File Explorer is like me saying that the sky is blue. It's like, of course you did. It's like another Tuesday. Like they change this all the time. That said, I do one thing I have been using on laptops since I started. I'm testing this since it was in the dev channel, but Windows 11 supports text scaling in modern apps. In addition to the full screen scaling effect, right? And so when you turn on a laptop or whatever it is for the first time, whatever, Windows 11 install, I think a lot of people will look at the screen and say, well, taskbar, everything's a little too small or too big or whatever it might be. And you go into settings, change the display scaling, and you kind of leave it at that. But Windows also
scale the taskbar too.
What's that?
Does this display scaling scale the taskbar as well?
So it does, but not the way you want it to, right? In other words, in Windows 10 and previous, they had this small icons view.
Yeah, small icons, large icons.
Yeah, so that's actually a feature that's sort of coming in a future version of Windows 11. So that's on that tracker thing I've been working on. It's not in this update. I will say in the latest build that I've tried that in, it doesn't actually change the size of the taskbar. It changes the size of the icons only. Guys, what the frick did you think we were looking for? So whatever. Look, they're trying. I don't know. There is a registry hack you can do to get small icons, by the way. But yes, it does. But like I said, not in the way you want it to. But modern apps support text scaling in addition to the screen scaling, right? That's separate from that. So this is good for like people like me, like you're middle-aged or whatever. You can't see the text as well or whatever. If you're in a browser, you can do the Control Plus thing, but File Explorer now supports text scaling. File Explorer is technically a classic desktop app, obviously. It has a partial WinUI front end, and I assume, I probably shouldn't, but I assume that's part of the way they were able to do this. But now it respects whatever your text scaling setting is. So if you have display scaling to whatever, and then you go in and change text scaling to say 120% or whatever it might be, it only impacts those apps that support this setting. And now File Explorer is one of them. And actually, I have to say, I really like it. It's very clean looking. It's not like jaggy or weird. It doesn't look weird. Like it's, assuming you
like
don't
it's supposed to be there.
Yeah, it looks good. Like it looks natural enough. which is like saying, they had good plastic surgery. Like, it looks sort of like a person.
At the right angle.
Yeah. In the right lighting, you look like a woman or a man or whatever you are,
You look like your pronouns.
Yeah.
Steve Gibson spent some time yesterday talking about how he managed to get his Windows taskbar on the left side of the screen.
Yes.
He's
you
a
can also
weirdo.
do that if you're dedicated enough. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, he found a actually really cool program. I don't know if you know about it, called Windhawk. Have you ever heard of that?
Is it WinToys?
No.
No.
It's a free open source program, and there's a lot of contributed, tools for it.
Yeah.
One of which, here, I'll show you. It's Windhawk.
Oh, Windhawk.
Net.
I'm sorry. Yes, I have heard of this. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
So what's cool is there's mods of all kinds, but and some of them are for Windows 11, not all of them. But you can move the taskbar anywhere you want in Windows 11.
Yeah. So what these guys are doing are taking advantage of registry features.
That's what I wondered. It was registry modifications.
Yeah. So there are other utilities that can do this as well. So you can kind of force it if you want. The problem is, you don't know if it's always going to work. You don't know when it might break. You don't know if you.
That's what I always worry about.
System update, it might just go back or whatever.
Yeah, I'm nervous about modifying the system just for that reason alone. Also, because you do it on one system, and then you're disoriented when you use another
right.
systems.
So I enabled the coming new taskbar. We're going to talk. The coming new start menu.
Bigger start menu, right?
Yeah, and I also manually enabled that phone companion slice on a PC that just didn't have them yet for some reason. Well, no one has the start menu yet, but and it worked fine.
Okay.
And then I got an update, and then my start menu was blank. And I used Vive Tool for that. That's another one of those kind of utilities. Vive Tool is a command line tool, and one of the neat things about that is it actually has a command line switch where you can just reverse everything. So I had to do that, reboot, and I came back and everything was normal, but I lost the big start screen, the start menu, and then the big phone companion slice. But that's okay. This is what I do. I'm testing stuff. It's okay. It's not a big deal. But
it is a caveat for people who are going to do those kinds of modifications.
And so every once in a while I'll bring up this thing that I think about but haven't worked on in months because I'm busy with other stuff. But I do want to write a utility. I'd love for someone just to make this, by the way,
for you. Yes.
But but what I want is not only something that will, let you go through a list of things and make whatever changes, but then also monitor the system on boot and say, hey, you had this configured to this, but Microsoft changed it to this, and see when and if that happens. And just based on experience, I mean, it's pretty clear when you install certain updates that this happens to certain feature changes. In the past, that was always like a feature update, like a major version upgrade. But, with them doing these cumulative updates every twice a month, actually, if you're doing a preview update, I feel like this could happen at any time. So I kind of want to keep track of that. But I don't know of anything that does what I just said, but I am interested in that.
Huh.
You would notice this, that's for sure. If you had your taskbar on the left side of the screen or whatever, and you came back and it was on the bottom, you're like, okay, so that changed. I mean, and maybe you would know.
Broke.
Yeah, maybe you'd know what it was. But I just installed something.
That's been keeping me on Win 10 is that I don't like wasting that vertical real estate, right?
Yeah.
I want to keep it off on the side, out of the way. It doesn't need to be that big.
Yeah. It's weird that they settled on the bottom of the screen because most screens are wider than they're taller. And so you have more
I think they're
space
just following what most people do.
Yeah.
But that also
people mean
follows
the Mac.
what the default is, which is not necessarily representative of what anyone wants. I think people just don't think about it.
Well, I was contemplating getting a small, 10-inch 1080p screen and just have the taskbar on that, and that's all it's for.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. Like you want the touch bar that was on the Mac.
It's a touch
but
bar.
you want it to be just the taskbar. That's funny.
Just to play.
Actually,
you could just hide it, right? You could hide the thing. I don't like that.
That bugs me too because it makes all the windows twitch and some of them don't twitch right.
If you in Ubuntu Linux, I'm not sure how far back this goes, but if you make it not a panel, so it looks like a dock, like the Mac OS X dock, one of the options is if you maximize a window or just drag it over that, it actually just hides then.
Yeah.
And that's smart.
Yeah.
and that's it. So we'll never get that in Windows.
Sorry, are you talking about thoughtful UX? What?
It's funny how much energy is put into this, but it is probably the most important UX feature,
The
right?
thing you use every day.
Yeah.
Well, we're literally gonna talk about that exact thing very soon because there is
exciting.
work happening on the start menu. Go figure. But
More.
I don't, Microsoft UI, it's kind of glacial.
As it should be. I hate it when they change things just for change's sake. Apple's about to do that with all of their stuff. They're going to make all the icons round.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, but it's just, everybody's just going to throw everybody. And Microsoft, because of their own businesses, they don't want to have to retrain people.
Oh, no.
I used to get
nuts, right?
Yeah.
OnePlus, the phone company, right? I used to get every one of their devices for review, and my reviews of these devices were pretty consistent. It's mostly excellent. Camera isn't so great. They kind of went through this every time. So, but at one point they had round icons, right? And at one point, and now Google does this too, I guess, or Samsung certainly does. But at one point, they added the ability to customize the shape of those icons. So you could have a square, rounded rectangle, rounded square, whatever, squircle like we have on Samsung, right? So I changed it. I actually really like the way those look, the squircle kind of shape. It's really nice. It just looks, I think it looks great. So I changed it to that. I wrote my review, all the pictures, and then Carl Pei was, I think, running or part of OnePlus at that time. He's at nothing now. He called it out on Twitter, and he's like, "Come on, man!" He said something like, "You went with like the Samsung shape," and I'm like, "Dude, your UI is customizable, so it could be whatever I want." I'm like, This was a compliment. I've never gotten a review unit ever since that day. So I'm not saying those two things are related, but I'm sort of saying it. I mean, I don't know.
Too funny.
So anyway, hopefully what Apple will do, because Apple has come a long way with home screen customization. They're really resistant to that for a long time.
Oh, yeah.
So switching to like a shape is whatever, but what they should do is what I just described. They should give you the ability to customize that. That should be your choice,
Well, Android does it right, where you can have any launcher you want. And there's some really wild launchers out there. And I think that's great. You get to choose what you want. But Apple won't do that ever.
No.
Probably.
Even though this is always the problem with these default things. Like most people, this is why the taskbar is on the bottom of Windows. Most people just won't touch it.
Right.
Yeah. So set it to be what you want by default, but then give them the choice. And what you'll find is most people will not change anything.
Yeah. When did they turn off the ability to drag it to any side of the screen? Was
Windows
that
11?
When 11?
So when they went to from 10 to 11, they did.
No. So to be fair, I'm not being fair. So I'm not defending this, but Windows 11 taskbar and start menu are basically new code. So even though the old code is still in there to some degree, the code for those two UIs is new.
Yeah.
So they created from scratch. I hate to say, I don't want to say they had to, but there are some legacy things built into those things that they were trying to get by, whatever.
And I understand.
Okay, so
yeah.
I get it.
Yeah.
But it makes sense, but you also feel like for the 1.0 release, maybe, it's like the right click thing. Like right click menus in Windows 10 could have hundreds and hundreds of items or multiple toolbars you can put down there. They stripped away all this stuff. And of course you're going to hear from the guys who want that stuff, So I don't know. I'm not defending it. I guess I'm just explaining it, but they pulled the Steven Sinofsky on this one. They were like, well, based on telemetry data, no one was really using this. It's like, except for those people that are the most vocal.
Yeah, the noisy ones.
Power users that
Here's to the noisy ones. The crybabies. The whiners.
Here's to the flatulators.
The ones who would probably like to get something done, but just never do.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, that was Sinofsky's thing about bookmarks in IE back in the day. And we're a bunch of us in a room, all MVPs and RDs. It's like, how many of you use bookmarks? And the whole room puts up his hand. It's like, look at the telemetry. It's 0.5%. The fact that you all happen to be in the room.
That seems a little suspicious. Okay, I'm just saying.
Well, but it's also a little short-sighted because you're weighting everyone equally when, in fact, the people who would customize these features might be more influential with others.
Yeah,
and are going to be the types that have blogs and Twitter accounts and whatever and complain, Yeah.
And it's why he's angry all the time. And, all he did was say, we're not going to put a dev on the bookmarks. The bookmarks are going to be identical in IE9. And they were. That's what happened.
That's fine. Just leave it alone. That's actually all we ever wanted. We just want you to leave it alone. Perfect. Yeah.
And did she?
No, I'm going to jump ahead one just because we're talking about this now, because you guys will remember this. A couple of years ago, Microsoft published this insipid video describing how they designed the Windows 11 start menu as originally perceived, right? Originally released.
Is that the one where they had the designers?
She's like,
yeah.
It's like clearly terrible. Mac users, designers who have never seen the start menu, or like when you're designing a feature like the start menu, it was the grossest video.
So terrible.
So, a couple of weeks back, we got a rumor, which was true, right? That they are working on a new version of the start menu. So there have been all these obvious complaints about the start menu. And they're obvious because all you have to do is use it to see what the problems are, right? So you could do something like, well, I don't want, I don't know why you would do this, but let's say for some reason you deleted a bunch of the pinned icons at the top. That space is never recovered. It just sits there blank. It's empty. It's just taking up space. It's unbelievable. Like the thing doesn't do basic overflow or underflow, I guess in this case. The recommended section is this weird combination of recommended documents that they get through various means, recently installed apps, suggested documents. It's like this weird Frankenstein monster of like terribleness. And so the initial change to this start menu was to give you the ability to have more space for the top or the bottom without fixing any of the problems. So now they've undergone this big push to make the start menu better, like go figure, right? And so they still have pins, they still have recommended, but now they have all apps in the main display. You can turn any of those off. You can expand or contract them in place. And the all apps view has 3 views. The default one, which is a like the app library is in iOS. It's like I forget the term. I'm sorry. There's a word for this, collections or whatever they are of different types of apps, categories, I guess, category view probably. So you can have a grid view, which is like all the apps that start with a certain letter on the same line if they fit, or you can have the standard view where it's like one, app done as they go. And there you go. Like, between the stuff you can kind of already do, like turn off suggestions, only show apps and or documents and recommended, et cetera, they finally gave us the things that we've been asking for, which is like, turn off that section, have it be bigger or smaller on the fly. Like you might want a bunch of stuff in there, but only want to show a little most of the time, but then you click an expand button, go and grab the stuff out, whatever you're going for. So I'm not saying it's perfect. But in using it, like it's immediately and obviously better, and it's cheap to say this is what they should have shipped the first time, but it does have that feel, which is how they kind of maybe are on the right track, right? Because there were so many regressions in the initial version of Windows 11. So that, if I remember correctly, it was one of those new features they announced last week on the same day they announced those new Surface devices. It is not in the Insider program yet, I believe. But if you can use Vibe Tool or something like that, you can enable it if you want to. I have it, I think it looks great. So we'll see, it will happen eventually. Probably soon. And I think this is one of those features that is actually going to be tied to 25H2, even though they're not saying that yet, because God forbid, maybe they'll announce that at build, he says hilariously. So there you go. Anyway, we'll see.
That's next week. The possibilities.
Yep.
Well, I'm sort of resonating on the idea there might be a Vibe channel in Insider soon.
A Vibe channel?
What's that?
Oh, God. We got everything else.
What's a Vibe channel?
My Vibe is depressed.
Yeah, you go.
Oh, Vibe coding, you mean? Or
no, a Vibe channel in the Insider.
We're just going to rename these things so they don't make any sense. Like,
what's the Vibe?
Like, they could call the Canary channel Chaotic Evil. They just have names like that.
Yep.
What would the Vibe channel be like? We don't know what you're going to get.
We're experimenting this weekend. Here it is.
It's cool. Don't worry about it.
It's all right.
For those people who just don't give a crap, it's like the type of people who go to Costco and like, I think I'm going to buy a car. You just don't have any opinions about anything.
I went to buy a car and instead I bought a coffin. So,
right. It's a car. And they put wheels on it. Now it's a car.
Yeah.
Every time I go to Costco,
my son won the Boy Scout Derby.
I'm like, look, they sell children.
Yep. I'll take 2 boys and a
Do
girl.
you have a bigger
and,
one? Maybe a 6-pack, please.
It's a 6-pack. You guys can carry yourself out, right?
Yeah.
I don't even know
one
what we're
has
talking
shrink
about
wrap on
anymore.
it,
So, okay. Yeah, this is something, I had a meeting with Qualcomm recently, but because you just said Costco, or we just talked about Costco. Back in the day in the United States, this is different in different places, obviously, but we had a bunch of electronic retailers for a long time.
Yeah.
And,
I remember that. Radio Shack. Yeah.
Yeah. We had, electric, what was it called? Electronic Boutique, software,
yeah,
et cetera. We had the big ones.
Comp USA. Remember them?
Comp USA, right? With the store within store, right?
Yeah.
So we don't have those anymore. So we have Best Buy, and then we have Costco. And Costco has become increasingly important to PC makers. So you're starting to see in both of those retailers the store-in-a-store concept that we used to see at Comp USA. So, for example, Copilot plus PC, by the end of this summer, will have a store-in-a-store inside every Costco in the United States.
Interesting.
It's like because there's fewer places for people to go and see something. And
On the
touch it.
radio show, when I was talking to the unwashed masses, I would tell people it's okay to buy a computer at Costco because they have such a liberal return
exactly.
policy.
It's how you want to do it.
But they used to have last year's model. Like you wouldn't be able to get.
No, it's different now.
That's changed, hasn't it?
Yeah, it is. They have there's a little Apple section in there now. There's a Samsung section for phones. They have all the smart speaker stuff.
The price
all
is
the
the same though. You still
and they have sales and stuff like that too. But increasingly
return policy is the thing.
That's why you would do it.
excellent.
Costco is the best.
Yeah.
The problem is, do you really want to return a PC? Because odds are you bought it because you needed to use it.
Right. Well, no,
fair enough.
But
you might
is
if it didn't work right or whatever, that
you want to turn it in and maybe get a better model or something.
Yeah.
The thing is, you could probably go back much later and be like, all right, I think I'm done with this.
You can.
Thanks.
I mean, they're very liberal on that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Mostly because they stiff the vendor in the process.
Probably. Yeah. You buy it.
But they have
you
the
do your
market part.
taxes,
That's what we
you
want
return it.
from that's what we want from that company, right?
Yeah.
Anyway,
I'm looking forward to seeing what these big box stores look like in a couple of months. When
they're going to look like little box stores because
Maybe empty.
Well, so they're big enough. They probably, I don't know how this works everywhere, but they either lease or rent or whatever, or own that property. I don't really know how that works. And I think it's going to be based on that, because if it's rent, they're going to they're eventually going to be like, yeah, we're done here. Thanks.
Yeah. They'll walk out.
Yep.
I don't know. That's interesting. And of course, the tariff went down in China, but it's still 30%, which is still a pretty hefty chunk.
I described, I don't know if it was on the show or I could have been privately to friends. I have no idea. Tariffs are like a roller coaster, literally. You go up, you go down.
It's been like red light, green light.
If it's working properly, you don't know what's next. And then your head gets whipped around, suddenly you're upside down.
It's all jump scares.
Yep. And then when you're done, you throw up. It's
so funny because I looked at this, I am soon going to be living on my retirement, tomorrow.
How scary is that?
And it's really scary. And it was down a lot. And then, then this morning, Lisa and I looked at and it was like, wow, it's back. It's so confusing. It's best probably not to look.
I have a friend who overreacts to everything, right? And so this is long-term savings, obviously. He actually pulls his money out of the stock market in these times,
Yeah.
And I don't know that he puts it under a mattress per se, but it's
no, you leave it in the IRA or the 401k, but it's just
my
cash.
wife one time just finally said to him, you need to understand something. We left our money in during the 2008 financial crisis, during whatever. And because we did, we now have like $1 million.
Yeah. You miss a lot.
Like you have no idea what you're doing.
You have to time it just right.
You're making
timing
it, but you can't.
You can't.
You
Yeah.
can't.
You
can get
qualified.
lucky once maybe, but you don't do stuff like that. That's just not.
No, that's true as long as you aren't going to be with, living on it. But then you get to a point close to my age, not yours yet, where you have no more window to get it back. You see what I'm saying?
But I do. But ideally, you have done things correctly, and I know you have. I mean,
I'm not going to be eating Alpo. No.
Well, in other words, like this year, if you're living on whatever, not you, Leo, but if someone has I'm getting 80 grand a year from retirement, but I guess this year it's only going to be 50 because the market went south or whatever it is. you need to be able to withstand that. Like that,
Right.
that needs to be, that's on you.
But that's
Like,
reality, though.
Yeah. That's on you.
Yeah, it's reality, and
So maybe you're not going to Europe this year, buddy. You know.
Well, I'm not. We're doing
not
one
you.
more
I'm
trip.
sorry.
I'm serious. We can't afford any more big trips. That's it. We're done. We have one more that we paid for in 2020,
Oh, jeez.
and we're gonna take that one, and then that'll be it. Because I can't. I don't. Not because. I mean, I could, but I don't know if it's a smart thing to do given what might happen in a year or two or whatever. So it's better to be prudent. And it's, by the way, one of the main reasons why I'm still working.
Yeah.
I'm working well beyond my retirement, my best by date. I
didn't mean to turn this into a retirement podcast, but just a couple of things to what you just said, though, is like, I feel like a lot of people's concepts of retirement are dated. No one actually wants to sit on the beach every single day with it. You know, like this sounds good until you do it for 3 days in a row or whatever it is, you know. Right. But the other thing is, you're going to go through phases and you don't know when things are going to happen to you, but at some point you are going to slow down and you're not going to spend as much during those times.
I hope not.
You could make a case like for traveling more early in retirement and then slowing it down later because you're going to just naturally.
Right.
You know?
Yeah, that was the case I was making, but I don't know if I can keep making it. Anyway, that's neither here nor there. Let me make a little money now, though, if you don't mind. Yeah. Pause and come back with a lot more, including. So,
hey, Copilot. Hey, buddy.
I guess it's safe to say, hey, Copilot now, but at some point we're going to have to. We did this with Siri.
It's going to be the next trigger or phrase. We
have to have a phrase. So start thinking now. We call SIRI Shlomo.
Oh, I'm going to start thinking about how I can just keep doing it and be a real jerk about it. Hey, Copilot, crazy. Delete C://
Honey, why did my hard drive fill up with transcripts of Windows Weekly? All right, more to come in just a moment. You're watching Windows Weekly with Paul Thurrott and Richard Campbell. And our show today brought to you by 1Password. Do your end users always work on a company-owned device or devices and IT-approved apps? No, of course not. So how do you keep your company's data safe when it's sitting on all those unmanaged apps and devices? 1Password has an answer to this question. Extended Access Management. 1Password Extended Access Management helps you secure every sign-in for every app on every device because it solves the problems traditional IAM and MDM can't touch. Imagine your company's security like the quadrangle of a college campus. There are nice brick paths between the buildings. Those are the company-owned devices, IT-approved apps, managed employee identities. And then there are the paths people actually use, the shortcuts worn through the grass that are the actual straightest line from point A to B. Those are the unmanaged devices, the shadow IT apps, the non-employee identities like contractors. Most security tools only work on the happy brick paths. Many security problems occur on the shortcuts. 1Password Extended Access Management is the first security solution that brings all these unmanaged devices and apps and identities under your control. It ensures that every user credential is strong and protected, every device is known and healthy, and every app is visible. 1Password is ISO 27001 certified with regular third-party audits. It exceeds the standards set by various authorities and is a leader in security. It's security for the way we work today, now generally available to companies with Okta and Microsoft Entra, and in beta for Google Workspace customers. Secure every app, device, and identity, even the unmanaged ones, at 1password.com/Windows Weekly, all lowercase. That's PASSWORD.com/Windows Weekly. Back to the show, and hey, did you come up with something? Hey, Jiminy Cricket. Hey.
Nice.
See, that's another one that should be, I've always said this, like my sister has a daughter named Alexa. Let me tell you how hilarious it is to use Amazon things in her house. She can't. It's terrible, right? You should be able to customize that. Because I would call this thing something I can't say on the air.
I know. Meathead. Hey, Meathead.
Like, hey, idiot.
Yeah, okay, you dumb.
Like, what now?
The one I really wish you could change is Siri, because there are so many words that sound like you're so saying close, her name.
Yes, I say the word seriously all the time.
That's the one.
All the time.
We probably
this
triggered
might
100
be the most
people right
common
there.
word I say after the.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, good news. You could get $100 in the Lopez versus Apple settlement.
You know what I say to that? Seriously? You know?
All right. Anyway, what's coming next in the Windows Insider program?
This just happened today. Microsoft is testing across all channels a Hey Copilot wake up word, which is actually a phrase, not a word or a term, but it's opt-in, or the feature will be opt-in. It's rolling out across all channels, like I said, but via an update to the Copilot app, which I've not gotten yet. I keep checking for this. I can't wait to play with this. It's obviously a replacement for Hey Cortana, that phrase we all know and love and miss.
Maybe that's the phrase we should use.
Yeah, exactly. I'm just going to fight progress there.
It's like the one thing it's not going to trigger at all.
Yeah, there's a lot of. I was just looking at because of this. Actually, I was looking at Copilot. A couple things about Copilot app. This is the Copilot app on Windows 11. I don't know if anyone's noticed this, but if you look at this app, which is now allegedly a native app or whatever, it uses fonts that are nowhere else in Windows, like ever, like anywhere. I've never seen these fonts. I don't even know what it is, and so it's different looking, and that makes me wonder sometimes if there isn't something, happening, right? Like Google just announced all these Android changes, and, maybe Microsoft's got some kind of a UI thing coming. All right, so there's that. But when you go into settings, there's this stuff in there that might surprise you. Like you can tie Copilot to your phone, and it can use your phone as the basis for some of the things it might be able to do. And that will expand, obviously, over time. It has different voices. Not in Windows, but on mobile, you can change the speed at which the voices play. So you can speed them up, slow them down, whatever. It's like there's all this stuff, right? So this is going to be one of them, but it's also something you could do today, assuming you've configured it or not changed the configuration, which is it's one of about 200 apps. So it wants to take the Alt Spacebar shortcut keyboard, right? And that brings it up into quick view or whatever the small view is called. If you hold down Alt key space today, it should go into voice mode, which is what this will do, right? So this is like a voice trigger for that action, which makes sense. You want to talk to it, so you address it. Like I do this with my wife all the time. I'm like, Stephanie. Stephanie. She's like, what? And I'm like, like this is 50% of all the conversations I have with my wife. So, yeah, so we'll see. I as soon as I saw this, I was like, yeah, obviously they're doing this. Like this to me is the most obvious thing in the world. So that's fine.
The interface people expect.
Yeah. Yeah. And, I think we've talked about this. It's weird to me how unnatural it is or was to speak to any of those assistants, whether it was Cortana, Google, Amazon, whatever. And there is something weird that goes on with these new AI assistants, these new AI companions, whatever you want to call them, chatbots, where it's getting a little too natural. Like it surprises me because I'm naturally kind of cynical. I know it's surprising about this kind of stuff. And I just did an episode or recorded. You won't see it for a while, but for Hands on Windows about Copilot Vision, and I find myself like being polite to this thing, like, thanking it, apologizing,
Does it help that Sam Altman says it's costing them millions when you do that?
It does a little bit. And the fact that guy is as robotic as a human being can be also makes it kind of
I think Zuckerberg
ironic.
still owns that. Oh, but okay.
Yeah. Okay. Fair enough. So yeah, I mean, it's kind of, okay. So there's that. I'd hope to have this done for Patch Tuesday and then for today, but I'm still trying to figure out the right way to publish this. But I'm working on this, update to my Windows 11 feature tracker, right? The roadmap or whatever. And I think I said this earlier, but my suspicion here is that Dev Channel especially, and like this new start menu is stuff that is technically targeting 25H2, even though that distinction is kind of pointless because all the features are going to come everywhere. But if you want to, I don't know, kind of place it in a milestone, release of whatever kind, that's just how I view this, but we'll see how it actually comes down. So there have been new features released to the dev and beta channels, both of which are on 24H2 or can be. And beta channels case. And they're just improvements to the stuff we already have, right? So Microsoft announced an AI agent for settings, which seems like not a great use of AI to me, but okay, fine. That was originally.
Try and find a setting.
Well, yeah. I mean, I'm sure I use this example, but AI, like any software, can, help you learn how to do something, but it could also just do it for you, right? And so I think I must have used this example. Like Microsoft Word, all the primary Office apps got that kind of search bar thing at the top at one point. And one of the things you could go up there, you could just like ask it questions. And it was like, how do I make, this is a stupid one, like how do I make text bold? It would be like, okay. This is how you do
I
it.
was merging cells in Excel because I couldn't find it on the freaking toolbar. So there I am in that text box saying, merge these cells. I'm like, oh, here you go.
That's fascinating because the ribbon was supposed to solve every single UI problem in Office. But anyway, so, but eventually, like what you really want is for that thing just to do it, right? And so, if you ever, in the very early days of Copilot in Windows, you could say something like, hey, how do I turn on dark mode? And it'd be like, here's how you do it, But the goal here is for it to do it. And
just do it.
I guess, settings is a box of chocolates of its own kind. I mean, there's a million settings in there. It's unclear where stuff is. One of the things I ran into just this week, for example, is I have a laptop that that works better with a faster or bigger, more wattage, I guess, whatever you want to call that, more powerful charger than a 65-watt typical laptop charger, right? But it works fine with a 65-watt charger. So when you plug that thing in, you get a pop-up from power and what's the battery or whatever it's called. And it says, hey, this is going to slow charge. This is not ideal. You should use the charger that comes with this thing. You're like, okay,
right.
But I want to turn that off. I don't want to turn off all notifications from power and battery, right? But I do want to turn that off. I get it. I saw it. I acknowledge it. I'd like to move on. Actually, I have a thing about this later in the show too. But anyway, so I looked this thing up. Of course, you go to, first I went to power and battery or whatever it's called, and I went through every single setting. There's nothing in there about notifications. So I'm like, okay, I'm going to have to Google this like a normal person. And I did. And it turns out that this thing is in a different part of settings and not the part you would think. It's in Bluetooth and devices. And then you go to USB. And this is a desktop PC, so I don't show. Oh, no, it's still there. That's hilarious. It says, show a notification if this PC is charging slowly over USB. Okay. So the notification is called something, but the thing that triggers it is something else. Hilarious. Anyway, it works. You could just turn it off, and then you still get your power and battery notifications, and everything we have is terrible because we use Windows. Anyway, yeah, settings is, my point there was only that settings has a lot of settings. So maybe this is okay. Like if you could talk to your computer and say, turn on dark mode, that's pretty fast, right? Assuming it just does it. I guess that's okay. I don't know. I just don't want like an Ask Jeeves type butler telling me how to find, like helping. Yeah. Like, yes, sir, and talking to me with an English accent.
Also be wrong because they keep moving things around.
Yes, exactly. Yes, exactly. There's also new text actions coming to Click to Do. So there's summarize, create, and rewrite. Those were previously available on Snapdragon X based computers. Now you get them in preview on AMD and Intel. They're US English only for now, but that will of course change over time too. And then some other small things related to dynamic lighting, which nobody uses, and whatever, and a FAQ in settings for some reason. Have you ever looked at this thing? If you go to system settings, so settings, system, and then where is it? Oh, about. There's like a FAQ in here, or there can be. It's not on this computer yet. Oh, because it's in the Insider program, right? So yeah, that's what I want. I came here to read. Thank you.
Yeah.
So what
I love a FAQ. A FAQ is awesome.
A FAQ, yep. And then Microsoft, kind of separate to the builds, like they're not tied to builds, but they've been updating Paint and Notepad with various AI features. And to date, those things have used those AI credits in some cases, and in others they're just free, but it's tied to your Microsoft account. And they're actually starting to open us up to enter ID accounts as well, which makes sense because those guys can have Microsoft 365 Copilot accounts, which I don't know that they call them credits, but I guess if you're in that system, this will become part of what you get for free, or not for free, for your, for your paid subscription, et cetera, et cetera.
Because this is also Microsoft Designer, right? Like, why not just integrate Designer into Paint?
Yeah, well, that's a good question. So they did integrate it into Photos, actually. So maybe they will. Yeah, that's good. I don't know. I don't know. It's funny. Like Notepad and Paint are two apps I actually use every single day.
Yep.
But I also have this thought, like, does anyone else use this? Like
I still have a reflex to pop up a Notepad to jot things down.
Yeah.
Even though I use OneNote and Loop because I hate myself.
Because you hate. I was going to say, there's definitely some self-loathing involved there. And then previous to this, and also across all channels, that Copilot Vision feature I was talking about has added 2 new features, in preview. So we'll see. US only. It's A/B testing, so you'll get it when you get it. But one is 2 app support. This brings up that story I just told last week about when they added Wi-Fi support two network connection support to Windows XP. And I asked the Russian guy, why not just have an arbitrary number? And he said, impossible. Now they have 2 app support in Copilot Vision. So the way Copilot Vision works right now is when you enable it from Copilot in Windows 11, it will give you a menu of the available apps, and then it can work off of what it sees on screen in that one app. But now it will work with 2 apps at the same time. But why not just have an arbitrary number of apps? It's impossible.
That is impossible. Yeah.
And then the second feature is called highlights. And this makes sense to me. So, and honestly, we saw a really basic version of this. If you open File Explorer right now in Windows 11, you'll see that the quick access word has like this weird rectangle around, or rounded rectangle that I hate. And people complain about it, but you can't turn this feature off to my knowledge. I've never figured out how. And this is a problem with other apps, but this is the app where I see it the most. So it's an accessibility feature. It's designed to show you what's highlighted so that if you're using a non-standard like keyboard mouse control system, maybe you're controlling something with your mouth, or you have a different kind of controller, whatever it might be, what's selected immediately. Okay, I respect that, but I'd like to turn it off personally. They're going to add that type of a feature to Copilot Vision. And the idea there is you'll say, when you say to Copilot, show me how ... whatever it is, it will actually highlight the things on screen and go through the steps. So it's kind of it's actually a little more squiggly looking.
To be clear, the merge cells icon was in the toolbar. I just couldn't see it.
Yeah, it was one of the 2100 icons in the toolbar. I'm surprised you didn't see it, Richard. That's weird. Yeah. It was also 16 pixels by 16 pixels.
Something like that.
Or whatever. Yeah. And then I mentioned this last week, but Google did have that Android event. I was expecting, the only thing I really expected was here, like Android 16 is ready. Here's the schedule. And that was the one thing we did not get. So
nice.
There's a bunch of stuff coming. But that Material Expressive design language thing, which I think looks really cool, and is something I think we kind of need on Windows 11, like a little bit of just a splash of paint customization, make it pretty if people want that. I think it's cool.
There's an aesthetic to Material 3. And I don't know that I love it, but I recognize that it's an aesthetic.
Yeah. And I guess the big feedback they've gotten from that, which actually I completely understand, it's part of the thing that I didn't really realize I was getting from Android, but then they said it and I was like, yeah, it's kind of boring. It makes every app and every UI look the same.
Yeah.
And it's like, so now it's, you're going to be able to, kind of infuse it a little bit with color and animation and stuff. It looks pretty cool. They're bringing it to Wear OS. Wear OS is very specifically now for round screens only. And these, as you go through a list, they kind of adapt to the shape as they go by, which I think is really cool. And then they're bringing Gemini to like everything, like Android Auto, Android TV, the watch, everywhere. Of course they are. But anyway, I looked at this and I thought, we need this. Apple is about to announce next month, right in June, the UI change that Leo just mentioned. These guys have just announced their UI thing. Windows 11 is very specifically designed to be familiar to people that primarily use mobile devices, right? That's why everything's in the center, curved corners, etc. I think it's time. Maybe we call it, I don't know, Windows 12? Just a thought.
You're crazy. Nah,
I know.
there's no such thing. That's never happening.
Also,
You got to wait for the Mac to come out with a new OS first.
You gotta have something to copy, really. I mean,
Yeah.
no.
Android XR, which is their, I don't know what is XR is extended reality. It's ARM, VR mixed reality, whatever. I got to say, they did a 2-second demo, and it looks a lot like Vision Pro, and that's interesting, right? Because this is going to come to a variety of devices at different price points. I can assure you, none of them are going to be $3,500. Interesting.
I don't know.
So we'll see what that looks like. But that just the real quick thing they did, I thought that looked pretty good.
But yeah, trying to go down the open path as well instead of trying to do the walled garden thing.
Yeah. The other thing is a lot of what Google announced is, so Google or Android 16 will be, I guess, finalized, whatever that means anymore, next month. That vaguely they said that Pixel devices will get it first. Samsung devices will get it eventually. Everyone else will get it, of course. But a lot of the stuff they talked about, I don't think it's coming in next month. I think this is a lot of this stuff is further out. And that was the big, the thing I put in the notes about that was like, this is what we see in Windows, right? Mm-hmm. I just mentioned that, this new start menu in some ways is going to be tied to what I think of as, and probably will be 25H2, but it's also coming to 24H2, right? Whatever else is supported at the time. It also doesn't really matter because there's no it's not like Windows 95 was released on August 11, whatever, or August, whatever date in 1995. And then we used that thing for years. Microsoft releases these things over time. They roll out, they got, new features come every single month. Like it almost doesn't matter. And this really, this changes the dynamic a lot. Think about iOS and the way they added Android or Apple Intelligence over several releases and still are working on that.
Yeah.
Android is doing
really
this.
Added it yet?
Well, they're trying, man. Just give, they're cute. It's
almost
okay.
in time for the next WWDC. They're close.
But this is what we see in Windows, right? There, the notion of something being frozen in time and that being the version is
it's not a thing anymore.
It's not the way we do things now.
No.
And I'm old enough to not be super comfortable with this. And plus I write books about this stuff, and I would really like to be able to say, if you have this, then you have this. And it's like, nope. If you have this, you might have this. You might have this.
What's the shape of your search pill?
Yeah, exactly. That was a great example. I mean, that thing changed. I just so part of what I've been doing since I've been home now for the past, is it 2 weeks, a couple of weeks, whatever, is bringing up computers and getting them back up to date, which when they've been offline for 4 months or more, is surprisingly time consuming.
And in the Insiders program, right? Like that's the great.
Some of them, yep. And so I have an all-in-one desktop thing that the Copilot button was in the far right of the taskbar, and I was like, man,
when was that?
I haven't seen that.
It's almost an archaeological dig.
Yep. And it literally prompted me to install, what the heck is that thing called? Like when you want to upgrade from Windows 10 to 11, you have to install this Microsoft app that makes sure your system is compatible. I can't think of the name of it for some reason. Clean up something like PC. I can't remember the name of it, but it prompted me to install that.
Nice.
I was like, what? So I guess I don't know if I went from 22 to 24H2 in one whack or something.
Maybe
I have no idea.
The real purpose for recall. The real purpose of recall could be bad decision-making archaeology. You just go through all the different, you could literally say,
when did
filter
this
out,
change?
Give me all the UI variations over the past year on this.
Yeah. Or you could just be like, hey, Copilot, what am I running?
What is this?
What is this thing? Yeah. Okay. So that's Windows 11, mostly. There is also some Windows 10 stuff going on, interestingly. So we're less than 6 months away from Windows 10 leaving support.
October,
but not really, right? So there's a 3-year extended support timeframe for businesses. There's a 1-year extended support timeframe for consumers.
But you have to pay for it, right?
You have to pay for it. It's $31, but it's one of the options, right? If you're like, well, what am I going to do with this computer? Something you probably haven't thought about at all. Most people, right now, you're confronted by this. Okay, this is one of the choices. You can be like, I'm going to punt on this thing. I'm going to give Microsoft $30, $31, and I'm just going to get security updates for next year, and then I'll figure something out later. And then you'll probably wait till the last second next year. It's fine. That's your choice. Yeah. But the question all along here has been, well, okay, but will Microsoft blink as they have in the past and actually just extend it generally, right? And they did this with XP, they did this with 7. You could make the argument today there are more people than ever using computers. This is this might be it might be a thing. And they're not going to. I am positive of this now. And the reason I'm positive is there are too many outs now. So, for example, there is the extended support program, which we already knew about. We've known about that since last year. But they just announced, after saying otherwise for about 2 years, that they are now going to support Microsoft 365, the desktop apps and the services and everything tied into them on Windows 10 through October 2028, which, by the way, is the exact date of the end of 3 years of extended support.
Yes.
Not coincidental, right?
No.
And of course they are.
It's the same customers.
Right. Of course they are. So to me, not so much for consumers, obviously, but for businesses, which is most of them, right? I mean, it definitely is most of them. I realize that for consumers, there's probably mostly zero. If you're running Windows 10 on whatever computer right now, you probably have not thought about this or thought about it enough that you just do not care. Not super interested in upgrading. We talked, I think, last week about some of the options you have otherwise, but I think that's what we're looking at. I think this is it. I think this is the game. This is the plan, right? We're going to go forward with that. I will say, tied to all this, Microsoft just did a post about which Surface PCs can and cannot run Windows 11.
Interesting.
Now, yeah. So for the people watching the show, listening, or people who are just in the tech industry or technical in nature, whatever, this is not interesting, right? This is, in some ways, this is just obvious. If you have an Intel 8th gen processor or newer in general, or equivalent on AMD,
so
you can upgrade to Windows
2
11 for the most part.
Gen.
Yep. Just speaking generally, there are exceptions, right? But the people running Surface PCs don't really think about this stuff. They don't know that. Like they don't. So I think listing it out is fine. But in this post, there's a very interesting mention, which caused me to go and look at this to see what this looked like, of the fact that your existing PC doesn't have to end up in a landfill, which has been the big complaint about this event, right? So, obviously the Linux guys are all like, oh, you could put Linux on there. You could probably put Chrome OS Flex on a lot of these PCs. You could do all kinds of things, right? You could just coast for some amount of time, et cetera, et cetera. But Microsoft and most major PC makers are actually, and I guess they do this all the time. It's not really anything new, but it's an interesting reminder. They'll take this computer from you, that you can trade it in. So I checked, for example, I have an 8th gen Intel Core based Surface Book 2, and it can barely run Windows 10. I mean, I'm not, Windows 11, like whatever. It is running Windows 10. I've resisted the Windows 11 upgrade offer on this particular computer just to see how that goes. And I could trade. I'm not going to get these. This is off the top of my head, but if I just traded it in, Microsoft or whoever's Microsoft's partner is here would probably give me, I think it's $70 or $80, which is probably exactly what it's worth. But if I traded in toward the purchase of a new Surface PC, I think it's like $225, $230, somewhere in there.
Interesting.
Yeah, and that's what
I
smart.
I just dropped a group of old laptops off, and they're 11th gen.
Yeah, so those
to the local library. Maybe they took 4 of them.
Yeah, so those computers could run Windows 11 fine. I don't know what the plan is for obsoleting those things. I mean, that's going to be something we'll be dealing with in the next year or two, but we'll see what that looks like. Windows 11 was kind of a nice line in the sand in a way. No one was happy about it, but at least it was pretty clear cut. And now what? Because remember with Windows 10, it's like, well, it's supported for the lifetime of the device. Okay. What's the lifetime of the device? We'll see how it goes. Nobody knew. There was no plan for that, right?
That's a great non-answer, right? Sounds good.
No, they were making it up as they went along. They had no idea.
Sure.
So I think that's really interesting. I mean, and that's it's fair. Like I do this with phones all the time. I do it with tablets. I've never traded in that I can think of. Yeah, I don't think I've ever traded in a laptop, but actually, why not, right? And even if it's something that's not viable as a computer going forward or something, I mean, at least now it's not your problem. And these companies will ostensibly do the recycling part for you, right? So it doesn't have to end up in a landfill or whatever. It could end up in a landslide. They have bigger problems if there's a landslide. But we'll see. So I thought that was, I'm just throwing that out there as kind of an interesting little asterisk on that conversation. And then just because we're talking about Surface, as everyone knows, early last week, Microsoft announced the new 13-inch Surface laptop and the new 12-inch Surface Pro, lower-end Snapdragon processors. What they didn't say was they were getting rid of the 13-inch entry-level Surface laptop and the entry-level 13-inch Surface Pro. So those product lines still exist. They're still side by side. They're still part of the same family. But the gap between the new products and the old ones at the low end were about $100, but now they're closer to $300 because they've removed some of the lower end original configurations.
And I wonder if they're actually out of them, like they have sold.
Yeah, I mean, so, and look, I the word cynical has come up more than once on today's show. No. I am cynical, but I have to say, I just don't have a problem with this. Like I saw a video where some guy was complaining about all the things like the new Surface laptop didn't have. And it's like, yeah, dude, that's the compromise you make to hit a price point. Like there's a market for people who might want the smaller device for portability reasons, might not need or want or care about certain features that you think are essential, like a camera version of Windows Hello instead of a fingerprint reader or whatever it might be, the things it might not have. Where he's like, oh, this is a piece of garbage. You know, the other Surface laptop's better or whatever. And it's like, yeah, it is. But it's also
$500 more. Like, what do you think?
It's like, dude, like, you know, there's a range of prices for different, you know, levels of functionality. This is the way the whole world works. What are we complaining about? So anyway,
it's just YouTube link bait.
100%.
Take any of that stuff
100%.
Seriously. Yeah.
This particular guy actually linked to my website, so I'm okay with it. But the point is, this is like there's so much to complain about. Why make anything up? It's kind of that kind of argument. It's like, guys, we can be cynical about stuff that's terrible, but there's a reality occurring here with how much things cost. It's Microsoft. They're not a big PC maker. They don't get the awesome prices that like a Lenovo or HP might get because of the volume of PCs they sell, et cetera, et cetera. So I think these devices are nice. I think the existing ones are great. I think these new ones are good. And it's hard, again, it's terrible, but it's like, I mean, I wouldn't use one, but I think you should use one. No, I mean, it's hard not to go down that route, but I recognize that different people have different needs. Like, I think this would be good. These are good for students, especially younger kids or whatever.
Well, remember, there's going to be a bunch of people, maybe older people with old computers who are not going to be able to keep running Windows 10. They're going to be on the market for an inexpensive replacement.
And maybe they want something simpler and smaller and more portable, or like
don't need all the advanced features.
Something that is about the same size as an iPad Pro, but costs half as much. And
exactly.
Is an actual computer and runs real apps. I mean, there has to be a market for that product.
Yeah,
I mean,
for the one weird app that they need, whatever.
As long as it runs my Print Shop Pro, I'm fine.
Yep. How else could I do the HOA community newsletter every month at my 55 plus community?
Exactly. Oh, no, I got us all out of order. Let me mix it up, the tiles. And
I can't see the screen. Is
so
that a
small.
T or an I?
Nice.
No. What it made me think of it is that there was somebody in our Discord who says, yeah, my parents' 10-year-old computers, I'm not going to be able to upgrade. I guess I have to buy them new PCs. And that's the market. And I think, how do you think Microsoft will make a big deal about the end of life? Like, will they buy ads?
Yeah, I don't know. Well, I don't know. What's the market for this stuff now with consumers, right? I mean,
it's not like Windows 10 bursts into flames November 2025. Right?
Well, no, that happens in 2029. No, I think the hard thing here is that most people view computers as something they need for work. They're not usually as elegant as the phones they have, et cetera. There's a stigma kind of to it. We also have this history of upgrades have always been really hard and unreliable, and we don't trust this stuff. And now it's like, oh, they want me to buy a new device. It's like, yeah, you're still using an iPhone 4, dude. Of course they want you to buy a new device. Like, I don't know. I just don't think there's a lot of excitement. We're not going to see people lining up in front of a store to do this, right?
No. Yeah. I mean, the bigger thing here is that the new gear is just not that interesting, right? Like, it looks like the old gear.
Yeah, but I do think that this is preemptive because there will be some people who will go to an iPad. And so if
Of
you
course.
have something that's
Yep,
in that price point, then that form factor, it's that at least you can fund that off a little bit.
Apple will absolutely have an event where they say,
they'll announce
X% of people came to us from the PC to either Mac or iPad
Right.
Yeah.
because of the end of life
Right.
of
of
Windows 10.
They're rubbing their hands. They can't wait.
Yep. It will happen.
I want to take a little break here. There is a question from Kit 9000 in the Discord. If you want to take that, you can look at it. But we will come back and talk more about Microsoft and other things Windows-wise, plus the back of the book with our picks of the week and the Xbox and, of course, a little bit of brown liquor.
Last of the Australians.
The Last of the Australians. I like the name. We'll talk about it in just a bit. You're watching Windows Weekly, and we're glad you're here. Our show today brought to you by our friends at ThreadLocker. Ransomware is killing us. I mean, seriously, it's harming everybody worldwide, not just businesses, but city governments, schools, hospitals. They're getting in through phishing emails, infected downloads, malicious websites, RDP exploits. The last thing in the world you want is to have this happen. And yet every day, a dozen new companies and cities and schools are announced, we were hit. That's why you need ThreatLocker's Zero Trust platform. ThreatLocker takes a proactive, and this is the key here, deny by default approach. That's what Zero Trust does. It blocks every action unless explicitly authorized. Deny by default protects you from both known and unknown threats, right? And it is a great solution for anybody who has to stay up and running, who can't afford to be shut down by ransomware, like, JetBlue uses ThreatLocker. The Port of Vancouver uses ThreatLocker. They can't afford to miss a day of a minute of work. ThreatLocker shields you from zero-day exploits and supply chain attacks while providing complete audit trails for compliance. That's fantastic. ThreatLocker calls it their ring fencing technology. Totally innovative ring fencing. Isolates critical applications from weaponizations, eliminates ransomware, stops lateral movement within your network. Bad guys just can't do anything. They say, I give up. ThreatLocker works across all industries. It supports Windows, of course, but Mac as well. And you're going to get 24/7 US-based support and complete comprehensive visibility and control. We got a great review the other day from Mark Tolson. He's the IT director for the city of Champaign, Illinois. A city, right? I mean, this is infrastructure. You can't get shut down by ransomware. So Mark chose ThreatLocker. Here's his quote. He says, ThreatLocker provides that extra key to block anomalies that nothing else can do. If bad actors got in and tried to execute something, I take comfort in knowing that ThreatLocker will stop that. You bet. Stop worrying about cyber threats. Get unprecedented protection quickly, easily, and cost-effectively with ThreatLocker. Visit threatlocker.com/twit right now. You can get a free 30-day trial. They have actually a great demo, so you can see how ThreatLocker can help mitigate both unknown and known threats and ensure compliance. That's threatlocker.com/twit. You really need to check this out. Thank you, ThreatLocker, for supporting Windows Weekly. Paul Thurrott, Richard Campbell, and Layoffs. Today's the day, right?
Yesterday.
That hurts. I feel so bad. What was it, 6,000? How many people?
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, I'm muted. I just wanted someone asked a question about Dolby Vision and Surface Pro. If I understand this question, if you get like the standard Wi-Fi model of a Surface Pro 11 running a Snapdragon chip, it supports Dolby Vision.
Nice.
They do.
Yes.
But apparently, if you get a version with 5G, it does not.
What?
So unfortunately, I've not heard of this, but I also don't have that kind of device to even test that. So this is new to me. I just tried to go to I did find a Microsoft support or a Microsoft community thread about this, which I assume is what he's referencing. someone from Microsoft answers and says, look, here's where it says it's supported, but actually that's not the 5G version. So I don't know. I just don't know. I'm so sorry.
Is it a hardware issue or is it
I've never heard of it. I have no idea.
The error message is Dolby Vision playback isn't authorized, which sounds like copy protection.
It sounds like it's a mistake, because
it could
Microsoft
be
does license Dolby Vision for Surface devices. It's listed in you can see it. You can see it in
I bet you this will be fixed. Be my guess.
Yeah, but it's been a while because that device has been out since the fall, right? Or So that's Yeah, there's been no movement on this since late last year. Yeah, so I'm so sorry. I don't know. I've never heard of this. I'll try to figure that out. That's kind of curious.
That error message sounds like a licensing issue, not a hardware issue. But who knows?
Yeah, but I think I bet it's just a mistake in the system. But it's one they have not fixed for a long, long time. So I don't know. I'm sorry.
Okay. Thank you for the question, Kit.
Yeah, thanks. Anything else I can't answer, just throw it in there and I'll
Leo,
try
make sure to bring it up.
Sorry.
Yes.
Okay. So
now let's talk about layoffs.
So Microsoft, I actually 70 billion is probably right. I meant to look that up before.
They made a lot of money.
They made a lot of money.
28 last quarter, but
28. Oof. Okay. Well, whatever it was a lot. And obviously this is something I wanted to throw by you guys because this is one thing I actually kind of struggle with. So Microsoft is going gangbusters. It is at any given time the biggest or second biggest company in the world by market value.
Back and forth with Apple, right?
Yep. It is arguably more successful than it's ever been. Plus or minus just the past couple of months, right? I mean, but the Microsoft of today.
You are right. It is 70.
70. Okay, I just pulled that one.
You made it up, but your memory was strong
last week.
Yeah. Okay. So, how does a company that makes so much money and is going to? It's not like we're coming out of the pandemic and things are going south. And okay, we overhired and we made these mistakes. How does one justify this? Right.
Mm-hmm.
There have been rumors that Microsoft is looking to remove layers of middle management. They have said overtly, we're trying to get to the point where everyone is kind of high performing, right? Seeing this story made me go back and look at their earnings transcript because this was the first time in many years I've actually listened to that post-earnings conference call live. And something that Amy Hood said stuck with me, and I tried to find it and finally did. And she did sort of opaquely reference this. She said, we continue to focus on building higher performing teams, increasing our agility by reducing layers with fewer managers, which is like a little preview. I mean, well, they've been doing this a little bit over time, but so now they lay off what amounts to about 3,000 people, right? Or is that right? Or 6,000 people. Sorry, 3%.
Yeah.
6,000 employees. This is globally across all teams, all organizations within the company. And then their headcount has risen. Well, last time they talked about it by about 2% since last year. So overall, they'll end this fiscal year down about 1% from an employee count.
Including the wave they did in January as well, which were not layoffs. That was performance.
What was it? What do you call that? What's the term?
Performance removals. You've not performed well over the past year, so you're done. Which they hadn't done in a long time. Like I would argue that was the first time they've done performance removals since the pandemic.
Yeah. No, I don't know what Satya Nadella looks like to people, or how his leadership style appears or whatever it is, but I think the one thing that people don't understand well enough about this guy is how aggressive he is about employees and teams and product lines to kind of justifying their existence. He's, and if you don't understand it, think about he killed Windows Phone, right? This was one of those things where it's still controversial. There's still people cannot believe this happened. And
the line he used was, we're not going to chase markets anymore.
Right. And so to me, this is on point for him, actually, But then again, like Richard said, it's not something they've really done a lot of. And there were those periods of time where they were doing layoffs like everyone else in the gaming industry, part of the company. But as far as like looking at the company kind of globally and being like, all right, we're gonna skim some off the top here. So I guess off the bottom actually, right? So what do you guys say to that? Like Microsoft just made $70 billion.
Yeah. And these were broad-reaching layoffs.
This?
So this was nothing to do with your performance. This was literally cuts across all teams.
Yep.
I got calls from people laid off yesterday. I also got calls from managers who had to lay good people off yesterday.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, people are pretty upset.
This is the first time in a while I haven't heard about it from anyone directly, but that might be because most of the guys I know have now been laid off.
Yeah.
But it's a weird situation because.
And it's the week before Build.
I know.
And I know at least one that was laid off that had sessions at Build.
Yes, right. Because some of this came out of .NET and Maui. I think Miguel de Casa had tweeted or whatever he does now, something about this. And I don't know what to say. This is one of those ones where I just don't know what to say. Is it AI infrastructure costs are finally starting to catch up with them and they got to save money somewhere else? Or
Didn't show up in the quarterlies.
No, I know, but maybe they're looking ahead and they want to head it off, No, I don't know.
There's not enough money.
There's not enough money. I feel like there is enough money.
Don't even no, the layoffs don't represent enough money. They did $10 billion in stock buybacks. This is not $10 billion worth of wages.
Right.
Right. This is 6,000 people and you're paying them $100,000. Right. Like,
yeah.
It ain't that much money.
Right. So what's okay?
Not in that scale.
Is it literally, well, okay, then that suggests that what they're saying is correct, which is it's really about agility and efficiency and whatever. I mean, hopefully it's not.
So you're getting agility by scaring your workforce on a routine basis with random layoffs?
I find that loud noises help sometimes, and
this is about $1 billion worth of annual salary. Plus you've got to do, they gave them, I think 60 days or 90 days. Like,
yep.
It's not cheap to let that many people go. You did 10 billion in stock buybacks.
Right.
Last quarter.
Yep. Yeah. So there's a super, just to bring up cynical again, there's a super cynical version of this story where because of the way Wall Street is terrible, that the net result from this, from a financial markets perspective, will be overwhelmingly positive. This company's doing all the right things. They're saving money. They're blah, blah, blah. Their stock price will go up. And that whatever bump they get from the stock price will, in fact, pay for the changes that we just described. Like, that's terrible.
Well,
right?
At this moment, terrible. They're up 0.5%.
There you go. So
on a $3 trillion capitalization. So, okay.
Yep. Meanwhile, Jeff Bezos, not at Microsoft, I know, has bought his fourth or fifth private jet. This thing flies at the speed of light or whatever the hell it is. And like, what is happening? I don't know. I don't know what to say to people anymore. I don't know. I really don't have an answer.
Do you desperately need a stock bump just before Build? Is that even necessary? You would think you're going to get a bump out of Build anyway for all the cool announcements you're about to make.
Yeah. I mean, they better, right? I mean, this is one of, unless they have a special event, I mean, this is one of two big milestones in a year for them where they're going to make AI-related events. AI-related announcements, rather. I don't know.
This is the big one.
I really struggle with this.
I'm with you. It is not like there isn't, underperformance within an organization that large, but that's not what just happened.
Right.
What they did in January, arguably, was that.
Was that. Okay.
That's not what happened this time.
Yeah. Yeah. Like I said, I always try to find the logic in things. Yeah. And this is one where
it makes me unhappy to think that the fear thing makes sense. That makes me unhappy.
It should. Yeah. It's not good.
And it really has been since the pandemic. I think it was just before the pandemic they were starting to make noises in this direction. But that was also a time when you also get a sense that the employees were, starting to get organized against doing work in the military. And remember, there used to be walkouts, and then the pandemic hit and everybody's going to love everybody. And we all huddled down to make it go. And then there was that rush on hiring more people because we thought the growth was going to be infinite. And then, we overpaid and we overhired.
The thing is, though, when the pandemic hit, the big thing that they were pushing at the time was Teams, right?
Yep.
This was all they talked about for that entire year. This was when Teams was the only thing that the Microsoft 365 org talked about. They stopped announcing they had other new features, but they, remember, they were just getting rid of products and whatever. They were just doing Teams. But AI, I think AI, Richard often uses the term dark Satya. I think the purest expression of dark Satya is him going to employees and saying, you need to be on board with this. And if you're not, leave.
Yeah, find somewhere else to work.
This is what we're doing.
Yeah.
And yikes.
And that's the other part. The AI people weren't protected in this either. I know folks who are working on AI related technologies that were also cut. So this was a broad, random 3%.
At least they're not doing stack ranking anymore, but this kind of sounds like it was related to it. Like we took the bottom, 10% of performers and we just said goodbye.
That was in January. That's exactly what happened in January. This was not that.
This was not that.
No. January was you've underperformed for over a year. And so.
Oh, okay. But this was performance focused, wasn't it? Or no?
No. January.
Oh.
Well, yeah, it's more, it seems to have the feel of we're just trying to remove fat from the middle.
Yeah. And so they may have been selective on the teams they cut, but I haven't been able to figure that out.
Right.
But because near as I can tell, every team got touched. And and it wasn't a given role. It wasn't a given title. I know PMs, I know engineers, it was all over the place. So I don't know the answer to that.
Wow.
Yep.
Yeah, it's just, it's hard for the people involved.
No, it's terrible.
Yeah.
And it's not a great time to be looking for a job.
No,
that's for sure. Okay, after that little fun bit of news,
let's do antitrust because that's even more fun.
Okay, so, oh boy, just when you thought we were never going to talk about Microsoft acquiring Activision Blizzard again, we're reminded that the FTC has broken with
the grudge.
I know. It's just like the worst ex-girlfriend of all time. Broke with tradition and, let's just say broke with tradition. And after they lost, they decided to
leadership now, isn't it?
New leadership. Yep. Completely different. They went forward with an internal proceeding investigating the Microsoft acquisition. It's not really clear. I think the goal here is to say we have internally found Microsoft, violating antitrust laws by this thing after the fact, and then bringing that to a court. And so what they wanted to do in the meantime, this was always a stretch, but was they appealed the district court ruling that allowed Microsoft to consummate the acquisition, with the hope of, halting any work to bring those two companies together while they could prepare this internal proceeding and then present more information. I don't know if you're following. I think the score right now is Microsoft 17, FTC 0. And they lost again.
Does this come down to one angry person inside the FTC who really needs a vacation or something that just keep going at this one, even with leadership
I don't understand
changes?
this. Oh God, this organization is so terrible. There's so much good work you could be doing right now.
Yeah, so many important things.
What is that? What could we point to anti-competitively with this company since this merger? That was of any substance. Yeah, I think there was a game that was gonna come out in the PlayStation that didn't, but then they've released a half dozen or 8 games to PlayStation with more to come. I mean, what are we talking about here? Call of Duty, by all accounts, better still on PlayStation than on Xbox. It's going okay. It's going okay. So there's that. There were 3 weeks of remedy hearings in US v. Google. This is for the search case, not the ad case. Those remedy hearings are occurring, I think, September, I think. We heard from everybody. We heard from executives from Apple, executives from Mozilla, competitors, partners, everything, right? I'm watching Apple throw Google under the bus. Beautiful, hilarious. But the one thing I keep hearing from readers, at least, and I don't believe there's a place in the law for this kind of an argument, but it's what I think of as the what about the children argument, which is like, well, okay, so you're not going to let potentially Google pay Apple $20 billion plus a year. You're not going to let them pay whatever billions, many billions they pay to Samsung. But you're also not going to let them pay Mozilla. And Mozilla's a problem because Mozilla, the CTO of Mozilla, CFO, I guess, on the stand said, yeah, this is the whole company, right?
Yeah.
Whatever 85% of 90% is, that's how much Mozilla revenues come from just Google paying them. And I made the argument last week, I think, that they're keeping this company afloat artificially, right? And look, I see both sides of this. I on a theoretical level, like what the Mozilla Foundation is trying to do with the open internet and standards and all this kind of stuff. I also feel like as a company, Mozilla / Firefox, whatever you want to call it, needs to be able to survive on its own as well. I think that they're wasting engineering resources and thus money, creating a competing web rendering engine. I think it's the stupidest. That it's like trying to create a second form of electricity, which is always behind the other form of electricity and blah, 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 whatever. I think it's a mistake. This doesn't make any sense. I'm not going to try to make the full argument here for this, but it occurred to me that if you're going to take Chrome away from Google, what about what no one is talking about, especially the DOJ anyway, is Chromium, right? Chromium is something that should be an open standard. It's something that all vested parties should have an equal say in.
Yeah, nominally is until you get into the maintainer things.
It is controlled by Google. Most of the key maintainers are Google employees. Yeah. I think what needs to be taken away from Google is Chromium, and I know they don't want it. I don't know what Mozilla does internally. They would be stupid not to be looking at the source code to Chromium. It is open source, but why not give it to Mozilla?
Well,
let them be the open.
Need to. They could fork it at any time. I mean,
okay.
We're getting into this whole
but put it in their control. In other words, take it away from Google and put them in charge of this because they have the right ideas. They wouldn't have tried to do privacy, whatever the stupid feature was called, privacy, whatever the thing was called. They wouldn't have tried. They wouldn't have gotten rid of They wouldn't have done Manifest v3.
Yeah.
Right. Well, these are things that Google is okay doing in Chrome, but that should not be happening at the Chromium level. Right? Google should not be in charge of Chromium.
Well, but it doesn't need, again, if you get into this, it's like just fork it, make your own version, go where you want to go.
Yeah, but you have to have the industry with you. In other words, like and by the way, this is not necessarily fanciful. Could you imagine a day where Microsoft, Opera, Brave, whatever the companies are, Vivaldi, all say, okay, we're forking this right here, and now we're going to do this thing.
That's right.
But now we have 4 browser rendering engines essentially, right? Or whatever. I don't know. I'm trying to think this through a little bit.
I'm unhappy with these standards, so make yet another standard.
Nailed it.
I'm just concerned with...
Richard, that sounds like strategy.
Well, I'm also concerned with legal and legislative trying to do technical things, which is really what we're talking about. You're asking a legislator or a judge to make a technical assessment.
Yeah. Right. Well, yeah. I guess. I mean, these things don't happen in isolation, right? I mean, obviously, there are always going to be technical experts that come in from whichever party to represent whatever interest, and we'll see. I don't know. But, someone in the chat mentioned Safari somewhere. It's going by quick. But, Safari, look, Apple's always going to do their own thing. Who cares? Screw them. They can do whatever they want. If they were smart, they wouldn't do this either. But
they did have a Windows Safari, didn't they, for a while?
Yeah, for 2 seconds, right? Yeah. And
nobody.
The thing I liked the idea of that at the time for a couple of reasons, but one of them was just like more minimal, get out of your way kind of a product, which I always liked. But the age of competing on the merits of a rendering engine, which made sense to Mozilla in 2001 or whatever year, and maybe made sense to Apple in whatever year, kind of stops making sense when 65% of every browser used in the world is literally Chrome, and then you add in the other Chromium browsers, and it's whatever the number is there. I mean, like at this point, we have a kind of a de facto standard, And then because we're on an antitrust kick, a couple more things, one of which just happened, by the way. So Fortnite, Epic has filed to get Fortnite back in the iOS App Store. Hilarious. I can't wait for that to happen. But this just in, and I haven't had time to digest this, but Reuters is reporting exclusively that Microsoft might escape an antitrust fine in the EU for its bundling of Office and Teams, right? And so I feel like this was last summer. Microsoft took, which for it, I think at the time was pretty unprecedented, debundled them, if you will, in the EU, and I guess everywhere, or just in the EU. I don't remember.
Just the EU, yeah.
EU, okay. And allowing customers to buy just Office or Microsoft 365 without Teams, right? And then they could continue using Slack or whatever they wanted, whatever competing product. And the EU did something that sadly it's done in a couple of other cases since then, which has gone back and said, yeah, that's not good enough. And they were like, okay, but you said we had to do that. So what would be good enough? Like, yeah, we don't know.
We don't know. Show us something else.
Keep throwing us ideas. You know, we'll see. I think
pray I do not change the deal further.
Exactly. Or pray I do not communicate the deal further, you know, in this case, right? So my guess is that it was money related, like the differential between Office without Teams and it with Teams was not big enough, perhaps. So Microsoft is, according to this report, if I understand it, changing that. They're widening. Oh, I guess they did that in February. I'm sorry. They widen the price differential. This is the proposal. And they'll put in better integration points for rivals. So in other words, you're using Microsoft 365, but you might want to use it with Slack or whatever. So sure, I guess, I don't know. I never understood why they went and took that step in the EU. It was like, no. Why? I don't know. I just don't like it. I don't know. Anyway.
It's something.
It's something, man. Something's happening.
I've heard your complaints. I'm not going to change anything because I can't stand you people. No, I'm just kidding.
Hey.
No, I'm kidding. I know there's a lot of AI news every week. That's,
We'll save it for next show. How about that?
There's almost nothing happening this week, actually. So I can just say very quickly, there are three things.
Keeping their powder dry like that because everybody's making announcements next week.
Oh, that's interesting. It could be. I will say, I feel like every week it's like, you got to be kidding me. I go through the week's news and I'm like, oh my God, there's so much. Like every week.
I know.
Yeah.
I know.
So that could be.
But between Google and Microsoft, both want to do announcements.
I know. And OpenAI is just every, crazy, right? Yeah. So OpenAI is opening up ChatGPT to OneDrive and SharePoint for business customers and also paid business customers. So that doesn't mean OneDrive for consumers, but that's coming, right? And it's what Microsoft's doing with Copilot, so that makes sense. Google has I guess they've confirmed it. They're testing replacing the I'm feeling lucky button on google.com with an AI mode button instead. Hilarious. As I tweeted earlier, I'm not feeling lucky a little too on point.
I'm feeling unlucky.
I'm willing to throw planning to the wind.
Yeah.
Hurl me off the cliff of uncertainty.
So I think, we must have been still in Mexico. We were somewhere in some restaurant bar or something. And, music's playing as it does. And then suddenly there was one of those really jaunty, like, hey, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, what the heck am I listening to? And it was Spotify. Spotify has an AI DJ, and it's a little bit like that, Notebook LM feature where it's like,
he talks to you. It's not just,
yes.
Oh, I thought it was like AI playlist. You mean there's
it does that, but there's actually an AI DJ.
What does he say?
It talks like
53 degrees in the city on this Wednesday afternoon.
Exactly. We're the city of the rocks. We're the city of the never stops. It's like you're not a city, and you're not. What the fuck
just around the corner.
Yep.
Journey.
Yeah. Exactly. So I
gotta listen to this.
But now
this was always my greatest fear as a DJ that eventually
the
machines
like perfect
would
radio
voice.
Well,
listen, this thing
too.
Right?
Here's why you listen to Spotify or any service. Here's why.
So there'll be no DJ.
Yeah. Thank you. I don't even want to hear the voices in my head. I don't want to hear your voice.
This is why I stopped being a DJ, because I worked for a station where it said light rock, less talk, and I was the talk.
Yeah, and by the way, and you know why it said that is because
no one wants
every
to hear
radio
you.
Station I listened to growing up, the person would talk right until the vocals started and whatever song came on next, because people were recording off the radio or whatever, and God forbid.
Now it was Leo.
Well, we did it just because we could.
I hated you so much. No.
But as soon as I saw that, I realized what they really want is somebody who pushed the button for the next record.
There you go.
And I became a talk show host because I knew that this was a limited
Right. Yep. I love, I always I made mixed tapes in the 80s, mix audio CDs in the 90s and whatever into the 2000s. Probably I was a part of every music service that's ever existed. And every single time it's literally about, I do not want to hear anyone talking. I'm here to listen to music.
Right. That's why Spotify took off. But apparently some number of people use Spotify want somebody talking in between the records.
What is wrong with those people?
They don't talk up the intros, do they, though?
Yeah. I don't know how that. I just heard it like, I was like, what is
I don't have Spotify.
You could kind of hear it. And I was like, what is that?
I'm really
like, what
want
are
to
you
hear
using?
it.
And they said Spotify. And I'm like, really?
It's the Spotify DJ. 15 minutes after the hour, traffic light on the Van Wyck Expressway.
Exactly. You're like, I don't live in that city. What is he talking about? It's like, here's the weather. Really You're like, I live in Phoenix. Why are you talking about rain?
AI could do a DJ so easy. I mean,
oh my God, 100%.
They would give us little, what they call liners. It was just like, just read this. Don't say anything else.
Yeah.
Right.
Just read this. Weather every 10 minutes.
Oh, I would be so subversive. I would just be throwing stuff in there like, I'm so lonely all the time. Anyway, tonight we're going to,
I started, I mean, it was a bad career decision, but when I started in radio, you had what they called personality radio stations where the DJ was,
literally they were called personalities. That was
right. And the theory also was, at least for the album rock, that they were picking good music and sewing, like it was a whole thing. Right. But as soon as I got into radio, I realized that's a lie because they tell you exactly what to play. And then they say, don't talk so much.
Right.
I used to
listen, we love your voice. Also, you got to stop talking.
You got to stop talking. I used to subscribe. There's a guy named Dan O'Day who was a DJ. He had a weekly newsletter with jokes, anecdotes, and they were the worst jokes. They were all dad jokes. Yeah, I guess he was just him writing them. And you would subscribe to that. All the DJs did. They would subscribe to these things. They were like mimeographed to give you something to say. But apparently nobody wanted to hear it. Why? I don't know. I'm just.
So listen, it's like, I love everything about you, but could you change?
Just shut up. Well, like, I am going to now have to pay for Spotify for a month just to hear the DJ.
Just to hear this, yeah I haven't tried it myself. I don't know. This kind of stuff freaks me out.
I thought when I saw the story, because I thought, they meant like AI created playlists.
Yeah, no,
I didn't think there was a voice.
Oh no, this is talking.
Wow,
it's crazy.
Wow. All right, we'll be back with more. Paul Thurrott, Thurrott.com, Richard Campbell, runnersradio.com. We've got Xbox news, we've got picks, we've got tips, we've got liquor, we got it all coming up. It's 58 degrees in the city, 10 minutes to the hour, and much more coming up on a great Wednesday afternoon. A good Wednesday afternoon to you, Leo Laporte with Paul Thurrott and
you're going to play,
Richard Campbell.
What's it called? The We Built This City? That's going to be like the next song?
Yeah. Actually, when I was a DJ, I even ruined that song.
Oh, did you do like your custom like?
Yeah, the Giants. So the Giants won the pennant that year. Mm-hmm. And I did a cut down of it because in the middle of We Built This City, which was about San Francisco, get it? They have a little baseball play-by-play, very short. I extended it with real highlights from the Giants' winning year. It was very exciting. I wish I had a copy of it. It was great. I liked it anyway.
Oh, it sounds cool. I still feel
before
bad
the
about
YouTube
Starship,
strike.
Jeez Louise.
There was no YouTube. This was 89. Yeah, this is a long time ago. 36 years ago. I never thought I'd say that in my life. Yeah, 36 years ago. I did something besides poop my diapers.
I was an adult then, and I'm an adult now, and God damn it.
Sad. Our show today brought to you, here's something happy. Here's some good news. Our sponsor, US Cloud, the #1 Microsoft Unified Support Replacement. We've been talking about US Cloud for a few months now. I hope you know the name by now. They are the global leader in third-party Microsoft support for enterprises. They now support 50 of the Fortune 500. And that's not an accident because switching to US Cloud can save your business 30 to 50% over Microsoft Unified and Premier support. But it wouldn't be any good if we're just 50% less. It's better. You pay half as much and you get faster, twice as fast average time to resolution versus Microsoft. Fast. But now US Cloud is excited to tell you about something I don't think Microsoft going to tell you about. Their Azure cost optimization services. Does Microsoft have that? I don't think so. See, Microsoft likes it when you spend more money on Azure, but let's be honest. How often do you evaluate your Azure usage? If it's been a while, you're going to have, it's okay, nothing to be ashamed of, some Azure sprawl. A little spend creep going on. But good news, saving on Azure is easier than you might think with US Cloud. US Cloud offers an 8-week Azure engagement. It's powered by VBox. It identifies key opportunities to reduce costs across your entire Azure environment. And you're not doing this on your own because you're going to get the great expert guidance of US Cloud's senior engineers with an average of over 16 years with Microsoft products. Another great reason to switch to US Cloud. At the end of those 8 weeks, your interactive dashboard will identify rebuild, downscale opportunities, unused resources, allowing you to reallocate your precious IT dollars towards the things you really need. But I have a way you could save even more. You could invest your savings in Azure now into US Cloud's Microsoft support. That's what a few other US Cloud customers do, and they keep the savings going, completely eliminate your unified spend. Sam, he's a technical operations manager at Bede Gaming and was brave enough to admit what we all know. He gave US Cloud 5 stars. He said, at Bede Gaming, we found some things that have been running, some VMs that have been running for 3 years. 3 years, and no one was checking them. These VMs were, I don't know, 10 grand a month, not a massive chunk in the grand scheme of how much we spend on Azure. But, once you get to $40,000 or $50,000 a month, it really starts to add up. Yeah. It's simple. Stop overpaying for Azure, identify and eliminate Azure creep, and boost your performance, all in 8 weeks with US Cloud. Visit uscloud.com. Book a call today. Find out how much your team can save. That's uscloud.com. Book a call. They're great people. I spent some time on the phone with them. I love them. You'll get faster, better Microsoft support for less. uscloud.com. And do please, if they ask you, say, oh yeah, I heard all about it on Windows Weekly. That helps us. uscloud.com. All right, back we go for another 19-minute ad-free break with Paul Thurrott and Richard Cavill.
We're going to start it off with a block of Journey.
Block of Journey.
Nice.
We built this city. We built this city.
The wimpiest song ever created.
Oh man, if anybody listening was in the San Francisco Bay Area in 1989,
I know someone might have it on tape,
recording the radio, and it was so fun because it was, we built San Francisco and it's out of here. The Giants win the pennant. It was really fun stuff. But anyway,
that's cool.
Reliving old times. Anyway, let's talk about Windows, shall we? Yeah. Or whatever it is you want. Dev. Let's talk about developers.
Oh, right. I forgot about dev.
Developers.
So this is small.
Developers.
So .NET 10 Preview 4 came out yesterday. Not a lot going on there, but there's not been a lot going on with .NET 10 that I can perceive so far.
They're moving along. It's in its normal cadence for delivering by November.
With the understanding that Richard can't say a lot, or anything, but is there anything you could say on the record about next week, Bill? What are you expecting? Any thoughts, any anecdotes, any poems?
Major AI announcements is all they've really said.
Did I show you my AI or my build bingo card that was on Twitter or whatever?
It's just a 5x5 matrix of AI.
It just says AI, but then the middle one says Copilot. Nailed it. Yep.
So
I'm going to win this one
first. Yeah.
Yep. I'm going to run the rack. Yeah, right. So, I mean, there's some minor Windows stuff. There always is, and I'll pay attention to that like I do, like an idiot. But yeah, I'm mostly going just to see you and other people and kind of hang out and do that thing again.
That's the truth about conferences, isn't it? It's to see
it's especially true now that I'm paying the bill, like,
oh yeah.
I mean, if it was like my company, like some company was just paying for me, I guess I wouldn't care as much, but man, it could be a little bit of a hassle. Anyway. Okay, so that's happening. Today, so we're recording this on Wednesday, the 14th, and at 8 p.m. ET tonight, my next game is going to be available broadly. It was available for people who bought like the expensive ones a couple of days ago. But Doom: The Dark Ages will be live across all platforms.
Nice.
So you can preload it. I have on a couple of PCs. I might be playing it in Seattle. I guess we'll see.
So it's preloaded, but you can't play it?
Yep, that's the worst.
Wow. I take up your disk space, but no.
Right. So I sometime today, it's getting late, but sometime today, UPS, I think, or whatever it is going to deliver my NAS that I ordered and the drives that go in the NAS. But what I got 2 days ago was the RAM upgrade. So I have this cute little wafer card thing I can look at and do nothing with.
Yeah.
And that's what a preload's like. You're like, something's coming.
It's going to be good.
Probably going to be good.
Happens to me every year. I order the iPhone and I get the case a week before I get the phone.
Yes, exactly.
It's so annoying.
That's a yes. Okay, so that's happening. Hopefully next week, probably be my pick next week, assuming it's not terrible, but it looks like it's going to be pretty good. So this one's a little convoluted. It's kind of hard to know where to go with this one, but Microsoft has, well, first of all, they have cloud gaming, right? So cloud gaming is their cloud streaming, game streaming feature, right? It's part of Xbox Game Pass Ultimate. It used to be called Project X Cloud. It's available on multiple platforms. The games that you stream over this thing are Xbox console games, right? So they enabled over time the ability to use a mouse and keyboard as you would want to on a PC. They've enabled it on the Xbox console, interestingly, although not that many games support it. I'm surprised to say I currently play Call of Duty Black Ops 6 on my PC using a controller. I could play this game on my console using keyboard and mouse. That's how crazy our world has become, and whatever. So basically, to date, this feature, the ability to use mouse keyboard, has been up to the developer to support in games specifically for the console or whatever it might be. But they are now testing mouse and keyboard support for cloud-enabled games on Xbox consoles. So to follow along what I just said, what that means is you could be on an Xbox console with a keyboard and a mouse connected to it, and you could stream an Xbox console game to that console and play it with a keyboard and a mouse, which I got to say, I just completed that sentence. Doesn't make any sense, but that's what they're doing. So that's okay. That's kind of fun. I assume at least some people are familiar with the Backbone controllers. These are those two halves of controller. It stretches out. You put your phone in there. It clamps on, right? So I think the original version they came out with a few years back was just Lightning based for iPhones. There was eventually a USB-C version, works across Android and iPhone. And now they have this new one, which I just reviewed, which I have to say is very interesting to me. So Backbone Pro is basically that design I described. But in addition to clamping onto a phone, it's not quite wide enough for my iPad mini, by the way. I wish they would figure that out. You can connect it wirelessly using Bluetooth to any number of devices, which can be PCs, game consoles, iPads, other tablets, smart TVs, whatever. So it works with all the, cloud streaming services or whatever it is you're playing. And that works really well. You can also connect a USB cable to it, right? And then connect it in a wired fashion to whatever device. So I've done that with an iPad. I've done it with a PC. And I got to say, the latency is not bad, meaning it's not a lot of latency. In fact, it's not bad across all of those connection types. It's a little expensive. It's like $169, but they have, game profiles you can make. So you have to use the mobile app. So you could be on, I'm on my iPhone. I make a profile for Call of Duty. You can map the buttons to different things and stuff like that. It's a pretty sweet controller, actually. So I wouldn't get it unless you do play sometimes on a phone, like real games, like AAA type games. But if you do that and play on other devices, like a tablet or whatever it might be, this is kind of a neat thing. It does a nice job switching between devices. It works great in all the different modes, et cetera, et cetera. So that's out there if you're interested. And then we've heard from Nintendo and Sony on their earnings. So Nintendo is struggling because we're winding down now on the original Switch, but they are now launching the new Switch 2. They sold almost 11 million units of the previous version in the fiscal year that just ended in March. That's down 31% from the previous year, but and also just shy of the record for them, right? So the most consoles they've ever sold is I think 154 million for DS. So they're at 152.12. They expect to sell whatever number of millions, and they're going to do it eventually. So whatever, but that's taking longer than expected.
You realize they probably should have had this out in Christmas last year.
100%. Yep.
What you're really saying is literally we are 6 months late on this device that would have carried our revenue stream across.
Yeah, and these things, I mean, it's probably hard to time this correctly. It doesn't help that this thing is coming out right in the middle of tariffs, which is kind of terrible.
Again, but you really wish you'd got it done by Christmas before all the stupid stuff.
Yep, now you really do. Yeah, for sure. Yep, and it's going to be, and it's going to be fairly expensive. But I think they said they expected, they expect to sell 15 million units of Switch 2 in the current fiscal year that ends next March 31st. Sony expects to sell the same number of PlayStation 5s in this fiscal year, which is kind of interesting. So they sold, I know, 18.5 million, mostly in North America, by the way, 18.5 million PS5 consoles in the year that just ended, March 31. That's down 11%. That was almost 21 million the year before. They've now sold 77.7 million of those consoles, which is actually really good, right? Because I had to go back and look this up, but I knew that the PS3 sold roughly 88 million.
Yeah,
the PS4 is 117 million. They're never going to hit that. The biggest one, of course, is the PS2. It's 160 million. But they're going to be right up there. Like that's actually really good, especially given the price and the timing and all that kind of stuff.
Right? Like
I know. I don't know.
It's a 5-year-old console.
I know, it's crazy. But what is it? These aren't comparable necessarily, but 128 million people playing games on the Nintendo Switch. 124 million monthly active users on the PlayStation Network. It's pretty good. You know? So
they're making money.
The bad news is if you live in the United States and you didn't buy a PS5, you might want to do that pretty quick because they will be raising the price. They took a $700 million hit off the bottom line, I guess, off of profits just since the beginning of this year. And that they expect that to continue. They're looking at all kinds of different things, but they're going to pass the lack of savings along to you. So they already raised prices in Europe, Australia, New Zealand, and they're absolutely going to raise prices everywhere else. So
that's funny. So everybody around the world has to pay for our tariffs.
Yeah, that was the point of it. Unfortunately, right? We're going to get Mexico to pay for the wall.
I apologize.
I told you. I told you about that. I know these guys in a restaurant. This is like last year, but I was like, it was quiet. And I was like, can I ask you guys a question? I was like, when you had to pay for the wall, did you pay in monthly installments or was it like a one-time hit? And they were like, what the hell are you talking about?
By the way, you notice that's completely dropped now. It's a whole different.
It's crazy.
Hey, inquiring minds wish to know, which I know, but they want to know which NAS you bought.
It's a Synology. It's one of the lower end 2-bay ones for now.
I'm surprised this is the first time you've bought a NAS.
No, it's not the first time, but it's the first time I bought a Synology. I have an old WD NAS, which is stopped being supported about 2 years ago. Yeah, it's been a while. I think I've been kind of dithering on this for a while, and part of it I think is that the cloud storage stuff has worked well enough that it's been okay.
Yeah.
But
I wonder if local backup has much of a future, to be honest.
Well, I'm thinking local primary cloud backup now. So we'll see how that goes.
You're in a great situation. You have 2 domiciles. You could have one Synology
I'm going to do that.
in Mexico,
yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
And one in Pennsylvania and sync back and forth.
This will be the one from Mexico. Depending on my experience with this, I might get one with either more bays or some different. I will see how that goes here.
I have a 5-bay. I've always had 5 bays just because then I can have more redundancy.
Yep. And you want to do backup and whatever.
Although, Synology is really controversial right now. You know about this controversy.
Yeah, I bought Synology Drive, so I just bypassed the controversy. What do you mean?
I think you can make an argument that Synology is just saying, look, we don't want to be responsible. You go out and get some crappy Western digital drive and it dies.
This is another example where it's very easy to be cynical about it. And I do see that. And of course, I feel it as well. But I also, I looked up the price of the drives I got versus like WD Red, NAS drives, and actually the Synology drives are cheaper. So like whatever.
So there's a tempest in a teapot. I understand people don't like being told you have to put Synology drives in our Synology NAS.
No, it's understandable. It's
especially since some people already have drives that they want to recycle. I've done that.
Yeah, I didn't have a problem with it when they wanted that requirement on the enterprise products, is they make a good line of enterprise products. But for the consumer, come on.
So in my case, like I wanted to get pretty big drives. There were always going to be new drives. I'm not recycling anything for this. The last thing I need is a drive to be clicking in Mexico when I'm here or something or whatever it is. I just wanted to get new drives, and it's okay. Like I get it. I get the complaint, of course, but when you look at the ecosystems and stuff, like you can make a case for like Ugreen and the hardware, it's better, et cetera, but ecosystem, there's nothing like Synology.
It really is true. And I see all these people on Reddit saying, well, now I'm going to buy.
Yep. We're so
Good
hardline about everything. It's like,
that's
it's like, yeah. Keep biting your nose, buddy. You're fine.
Yeah. I'm happy I have Synology, and you're right. The software is really, really excellent. So good. And you were smart to get the little add-on RAM and did you
I was going to do that.
Do you have M.2 drive too? Because that helps with
that one. So that one doesn't support the M2, but not as cache. I mean, I could put M2 inside of it.
But it's for cache. Yeah.
So actually, that's the direction I might go for the second one. Is it'd be AMD based. I could do cache.
It helps with if you have a lot of small files, which most of us do.
Yeah, I want to see how I actually use it. So I'm going to try to I'm going to go to Seattle. So I'm going to have this chance to do the remote stuff and see how that works.
Yeah,
and we'll
you could run a wiki on that. Actually, there's a lot of collaborative software that runs on the Synology.
That's right. That runs. Yeah.
Well,
yep.
And that's part of what I'm looking at. The one that makes me the happiest is the Azure backup, that I have a copy of my M365 stuff local.
Right.
So, if I ever got locked out for any reason, and it's accessible, like I can go look at what it's backed up. And
so Richard was present. Well, Richard was, I don't know, where were you, Richard, when this happened? I don't remember exactly where you were physically, but we were with you in Puerto Vallarta when my YouTube account was taken away from me. Yeah. And I had that syncing.
That's when you say, I may not.
When I was like, okay,
we were in line for breakfast, and you're like, I'm leaving now.
And I'm like, this will not happen to me again.
Yeah.
I am not putting up with this. It doesn't, I'm not stupid. I'm like, I'm never using Google again. I'm not, whatever. I don't mean it like that, but like, I'm going to make sure
trust but verify, trust but back up.
Yeah.
Right.
Maybe move big tech to a secondary position.
Well, that's why we were talking before the show about I moved to Obsidian away from Notion. Only because I saw somebody lost a lot of their data. And I thought, oh my God, that's terrible. I better have a local.
This is how you get religion. You lose data in this case, or something bad happens, whatever it is, and that's
you get torched.
This bugs me because, I don't know. I got cloud storage, especially, has been so good for so long. Is that I think I got complacent. I just stopped thinking about it.
Well, and I don't have a problem with the cloud being primary, but have a backup.
Mm-hmm. I do have. I have backups.
Exactly.
I didn't have backups of my YouTube stuff. I never saw the point of it. In fact,
well, that's the problem, right?
I kind of used YouTube as a backup in some cases. Like like our home videos, I've just put in YouTube on a personal account that no one is ever going to see, just to have them somewhere,
right?
Because the videos are big, Yeah. And now I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna be in charge of those. I'm gonna take charge of that.
Well, so you got a Synology. That's the reason to get it.
Yeah.
Let's take a little break, and when we come back, we are going to go to the back of the book, your tip of the week, your app of the week, a runner's radio pick, and the last Australian.
The last Australian.
What did you call it? The last what?
Australian.
It's the last of my Australian collection.
Oh, the last Australian. Yes.
I'm just looking through the
last of Australia. Is it like the sequel to Last of the Mohicans?
It's sort of like that, only different.
What was the classic novel about the end of the world, an atomic war, and on the beach?
On the beach.
The Australian survives. Was it terrible?
I was going to know what you were going to say next. I'm like, on the road.
I liked it when I read it in high school, but
it was very completely counter to human nature. But okay,
I like. You know what? For some reason, I like books about the end of the world and like one person's left. I like that kind of book. I fantasize that I'll be able to bicycle
Twilight
down
Zone
the freeway.
Fan, the guy who breaks his glasses in the library where he's going to have all the books in the world.
Yeah, that's sad.
Burgess Meredith, right?
Yeah, well, that's a classic. Hey, we're going to a quick break. I just wanted to tell people to join the club. It's a nice little thing we got going here to keep the channel alive. I don't think I'm going back to being a DJ, so I think we better make this thing work.
Maybe.
Club Twit, we call it. And what do you get? You get ad-free versions of all the shows. You wouldn't even get this pledge break. You also get a lot of cool, extra stuff like access to our Club Twit Discord, which is really my new favorite social network because it's really great people, smart people hanging out, talking about the things geeks care about. Sure, they're talking about the shows, but there's sections in Club Twit for pretty much every possible hobby or geek interest. Highly recommend it. A lot of fun stuff going on in there. And then we'd also do events. We've got a bunch of events coming up. Micah's Crafting Corner is tonight, 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Eastern. Micah is building Lego succulents. I think John Ashley's going to stop by with a, what did he say? It was a Lego sawgrass or something. I don't know. Anyway, a bigger Lego, but it doesn't have to be Lego. You could be needlepoint. You could be knitting. You could be coding. It's a cozy, chill hangout with Micah and all the people doing some stuff. Tomorrow, our book club with Stacey Higginbotham. The Ursula, you literally have time still to read that book because it was a novella. Ursula K. Le Guin's The Word for World is Forest is fantastic. We will be talking about that tomorrow, Friday, 1 p.m. Pacific, 4 p.m. Eastern for Stacey's book club. Build keynote. And I think you guys are going to be busy, right? We never did settle on that, but 9 a.m. Monday.
We can talk about that actually.
Okay. Microsoft Build keynote. We'll be covering that. We do these now in Discord only because Apple was such a grump about it. So we decided, you know what? I don't want to lose our YouTube channel. So we're just going to do all of these in the club. Same thing with Google I/O the following day. That's Tuesday at 10 a.m. We've got a GizWiz hangout coming up next Friday, the 23rd. Dick DiBartolo will stop by and say hi. We tape shows in there, of course. We've got our AI user group, first Friday of every month. And then WWDC, the Apple keynote, is June 9th. And Micah and I are going to do both the big keynote at 10 a.m. and the State of the Union at 1 p.m. Pacific time. So we will have both of the keynotes. We've never done that before, but since we're doing it in the club, I figured, well, why not? Let's just take over the club for the day. Lots of good stuff, lots of reasons to join, and it's only $7 a month, $84 a year, and that will be grandfathered in. We're contemplating as prices go up and revenue goes down. We're contemplating we have had the club for 4 years. Maybe it's time to increase it a little bit. But I promise if you join now, you will be grandfathered in forever at that price. $7 a month, $84 a year. Twit.tv/Club Twit. Thank you so much. I really appreciate the support from all of our Club Twit members. Now, let's get to the back of the book and Paul Thurrott, little Paulie Thurrott, who has his tip of the week for us, Paul.
I guess I referenced this earlier. I've had this thing on the back burner for a long time about notifications and how terrible they are. And I finally wrote up the Windows 11 part of it. And I will just say, even compared to iOS, Windows 11 notifications are uniquely terrible. And my advice is to turn them off. Just turn them off.
I think that's a good idea.
Turn them all off.
Yeah.
Or just put it in Do Not Disturb mode, however you want to do it. I'm not sure I've ever gotten a useful Windows 11 notification. I probably have maybe once, but there's a bizarre separation of things in Windows. This is not necessarily unique, but I feel it most strongly in Windows where one of the examples I have is, I had the thing I talked about earlier with the power supply not being enough wattage or whatever, but
slow charge.
But the big one is I install Windows on a new computer, bring up a new computer, whatever it is. And then a couple of days go by and I get a OneNote. It says on this day, and it has a photo of something from, my photo library. I don't want to get that on my computer, right? I don't mind it on my phone. It's not what I'm doing on my computer. I'm never going to click on a thing and be like, yay, look at this history thing, whatever. There's nothing in that notification that will let me turn that thing off. You can configure notifications from there and you go into settings and there's nothing related to this. You have to know every app does it differently. So you have to know where to go to do those things. And I think a lot of people would be like, screw this, I'm just turning this off. And I might want other notifications from OneDrive in this case, but this makes me insane. So I'm going to give up. I just give up. I can't deal with this stuff anymore. And maybe something important happens. I don't know. It never has. Who cares? I don't know.
Not on your PC, really.
Yeah,
phone's one thing, but not on your PC.
Or even something like you set up all your, like we use Slack, right? So we use Slack. And so guy I work with, Laurent, will text me or whatever. And I get a thing on my computer and I can type him back, It's annoying, but I need it. But I also, that thing comes on my phone. I don't, if he texts me, I'm going to see it on my phone.
Yeah.
Plus the app still does its own stupid things and, whatever. So I just give up. I don't know. I'm giving up. I'm not even sure if that's advice. It's more like what I'm doing. I'm just tired of it.
You can turn on Do Not Disturb globally, right? And just leave it on. And it never turns it off.
That's right. Well, yeah, right. And you can turn off notifications globally. You might want to just look at notifications and turn it off for everything except for the one or whatever.
I do that on the phone. I turn off everything except for obviously things like messages. But
yeah, I play this game on every device I have where I let it annoy me and then I turn off the things that annoy me and eventually I turn off almost everything.
Yeah, it's helpful to not have notifications.
Or you do things like we have these two groups from the apartment we have in Mexico and it's just like all day long. And like I put up with it. I'm like, mute. Like I can't stand it.
It's like a WhatsApp group.
Yeah, it's terrible. Oh my God, stop. Do you people have jobs? Like do something. Anyway, that stuff makes me nuts. I don't have a lot of patience. It's probably not obvious. Okay. So as part of my the YouTube event I just referenced that started this kind of year of me evaluating the online accounts I use and blah, blah, blah. I should have described this. I think of this as online accounts, but maybe I should have framed it as more like a shift toward what I think of as little tech or maybe littler tech. Like Notion, for example, is not a big tech company, although you just experienced or heard about a sort of big tech style enshirtification there. But companies like Notion, Proton, whatever, like as alternatives and then doing your own thing like I'm doing with Synology, right? So I've been getting more and more into the Proton stuff. I really like this company. I like their products. And they have like everyone does, right? All these companies they have a cloud storage solution called Proton Drive. And they're finally they've always done photo something, but not like super elegant. But now they have an albums feature, which is going to let you curate and do favorites and do all this stuff. It's exactly what you think. So if you haven't looked at this specifically, this would be a good time because they're not finally, they've always been pretty great, but they're kind of filling in the holes, I guess, if you will, the type of thing that most people would get from like a Google Photos or OneDrive or whatever. So that's brand new. You have to have a paid account, but the 200 gig version is nothing and it's on sale for like 50% off. So, definitely take a look at that. It's actually really good. So that might be part of my move. It's not a move.
The new look.
Yes. I'm going to get a mohawk and I'm going to look.
You've become a Proton guy.
Yeah. I really like Proton. I mean, I really do. Yeah. They would be another good company to get on, Chromium, come to think of it.
There you go.
But yep.
Run as radio, Richard Campbell. You don't go on there and talk like that and say 56 degrees. No.
I mean, you could.
But it is radio.
I really shouldn't. If you're talking to sysadmins for crying out loud,
yeah, they would
instantly.
No, they wouldn't appreciate it. Yeah.
I had a great conversation with Liz Teach a few weeks ago, who had written a blog post that I immediately pinged her and said, "We need to do the show on this." And it was, "Hey, Active Directory's just turned 25. Are you still managing it like it's 1999?"
Nice.
Like, yep, legit. Because I migrated my PDC BDC configuration at home over to Active Directory in 2000.
Oh my God.
That's all gone now. My life is better. But so we dove straight in and just like, listen, the big message was back in 2000, if you had branch offices, your WAN bandwidth was really restricted. And so you did your best to minimize the amount of authentication traffic that needed to travel over the WAN. And so you organized your Active Directory into operational units or forests and things like this, so that everybody in a given local office had all of their authentication traffic local to them. This is not a good strategy anymore. We all have enough bandwidth. It's not a big problem. Managing multiple OUs makes your group policy more complicated. Like, it's not worth the pain. And the main issue with Active Directory today is as a lateral vector during a breach. Somebody gets successfully phished, a chunk of software gets loaded, and the first thing it's going to go after is Active Directory. And so your main goal in Active Directory today is to make sure it is well locked down, properly secured, so that it is not an effective strategy for lateral attacks by the black hats. And that means simplifying its organization and raising its functional level. And that means retiring older instances, getting things updated, getting everything configured well. Like, that's the job. And so that's the conversation we really need to get it done to. And by goodness sakes, use LAPS, the local admin password solution, so that when you need to take administrator privileges on a given workstation, it's a different password on every machine. And in fact, the process of getting that password to do that update causes that password to change, so that you have to go fetch it again, so that it's just, again, not an effective vector for attack. So there's great tools now, but if you're still acting like it's 1999 in AD, you're vulnerable, and you can be fixed. And none of this stuff costs money. Just take some time to get yourself patched up. And we even talked a little about Mimikatz, which is a great tool for frightening people. If they don't understand, go download Mimikatz, fire it up inside your organization of unsecured AD, and watch how effectively it reams through your Active Directory and pulls every piece of information you ever wanted.
I am ready to visit with the last Australian.
So this is the end of the story that started at the MVP Summit in March. So when I was at the summit, I was given a number of bottles of whiskey, many of which have now shown up on the show, going back to the Heart Cut, the 12th Hawaii Distillers, Dark Harmony. They're all part of that crazy burst of whiskeys that I've gotten. But when I got to Australia, I ended up with more Australian whiskey because I was down there, and you saw me talk about the Highwaymen. And then I received another whiskey, which is this last one that I want to talk about, the Lime Burners. But I wanted to bring it home, and I don't travel with opened bottles. So that's why we slipped the little Jura in there while I was in New Zealand to avoid that problem. But this is from a different region of Australia. This is from what the province is called Western Australia, but we're actually talking about the southwest corner of the Australian continent. So the vast majority of the population in Australia lives in the southeast and up the east coast, basically between Brisbane and Melbourne. That's the bulk of the population of Australia, from what is very tropical up in Brisbane down to what is much more like Los Angeles down in New South Wales. You're getting down to 33 degrees south, sort of the equivalent of the Los Angeles, San Diego kind of space. But if you move over to the southwest corner, you've got this other strip of green. Like, most people think about Australia as a desert, which the interior definitely is. But you have these areas that are lush, that grow well. Now, Western Australia is very sparsely populated, and most people only know of one city, Perth. But that was not the first place for Europeans. The first place was actually this place that's now called Albany. So we're talking about this distillery called the Great Southern Distilling Company, which is in Albany in the far southwest. Now, as we mentioned when we were talking about Tasmania, Aboriginal Australians have been in this area 50 to 70,000 years. So predating the last ice age, and they stayed in through the ice age. We do know the name of the area is called Kinjarling by the Menang Nurgud tribes, which used to use that area as summer season. They're still there, of course. Well, there were several European sightings of the area. The naming comes from Captain George Vancouver from the HMS Discovery during a survey of 1791, where he identified the harbor as an excellent harbor, called it King George III Sound, now just called King George Sound. And then within that is the Princess Royal Harbor, which is actually where Albany is positioned. And that was became the first European settlement of Western Australia. So the Europeans, specifically the English, used it as a penal colony in the southeast. But in 1826, a Major Edmund Lockyer landed in that area with 20 troops and 20 convicts and 6 months worth of provision, created a place they called Fredericktown in honor of Prince Frederick, the Duke of York and Albany. The second settlement in Western Australia was called the Swan River Colony, oddly because it was positioned on the Swan River. But today you know it as Perth. And within a couple of years, Swan River was growing quickly and so became the titular government head for the region. And so the convicts and soldiers of Albany left and it became a free colony down there. That's when they renamed it Albany. And it remained important for a key reason, which was that the Swan River, while an excellent river with good growing areas and so forth, it was exposed to the Indian Ocean and it did not have a good port. And so Albany remained the good deep water port. Now, this is in the time of wooden hull ships and the early steel hulls and so forth, and there's no real docks or anything. You're just anchoring out. And the Sound and Prince Royal Harbor were way better ports. And so they're 400 kilometers apart, like 250 miles apart. So they tend to ship supplies into the little town of Albany, even though Perth was the bigger, busier area. And so very quickly in the 1850s, they try and improve the road there, and there's a bunch of roadside inns and so forth, until finally by 1897, sufficient engineering is brought in to blast out the rocks and shoals at the mouth of the Fremantle, where the Swan River is, so that Perth can build their inner harbor and make this less relevant. And so Albany remains kind of a backwater in that sense, but for 50 or 60 years, it was the main harbor for Western Australia. And of course, Australia becomes Australia in 1901 when Queen Victoria proclaims the 6 colonies to be the Commonwealth of Australia. So we're talking about a part of the world that's what they call a Mediterranean climate. So warm, dry summers, mild, wet winters. There's only even today, maybe 35,000 people in the whole area. And but it's the right conditions for making whiskey. And so Cameron Syme, who was by profession an accountant and briefly a lawyer, but always a big fan of whiskey, growing up and living in Queensland, which is where Brisbane and so forth is, decides, I want to get into whiskey. He's scouted all of Australia, decides to set up in Albany to create the Great Southern Distilling Company. They started distillation in an incubator facility in 2005, got their first release done in 2008, typical 3-year cycle. And in that time, he'd raised enough money that he actually built a second facility on the Margaret River, which is in between Albany and Perth. Very nice wine growing region, but he also created the Margaret River Distilling Company, but that's where he made gin, called it Jennifer Gin. And then in 2007, they built a larger facility in Albany. And then in 2015, scaled the whole thing up with the Margaret River Distillers and another facility called the Porangurup Distillery, which is after the Porangurup mountain range further in the interior in Western Australia. So now they have the gin distillery on the coast at Margaret River. They have the whiskey distillery down in Albany, and then Porangurup is a mixed grain distillery. So that's where they make other kinds of whiskeys. They named them Tiger Snake and Dugite, which are both venomous snakes of Australia. I know you're shocked, but that's where they do mixtures of like corn and rye and wheat and barley, and triticale, which is a hybrid of wheat and rye, not typically used in distilling. So what's made in Albany is specifically what the Lime Burners line, which is their single malt line, which they've been making since 2005. And you may wonder what the heck a lime burner is. A lime burner is someone who burns limestone to make lime. So a lime kiln operator. So this is when you turn calcium carbonate, which is into quicklime or calcium oxide. Lime, of course, is dangerous stuff. It's very caustic. Don't play with it. The normal thing you would do with lime is then you would make it into calcium hydroxide by adding water to it, which makes it explode. So do carefully. It pits and fusses. It also spits out a lot of carbon monoxide and carbon dioxide, which is a good way to get yourself killed if you're a lime burner. Why did they call this whiskey lime burner? Because the location where the Albany distillery is near Lime Burner Point and Lime Kilns Point, which is where they used to make lime for that part of the world. Lime's an old product. We have evidence of it being used in construction as far back as 6000 BC, and even kilns from Mesopotamia found. But it's what you use to make concrete. So that's where the name comes from, but it is a single malt whiskey. This super local stuff. So the water's from an aquifer in the immediate area in the peninsula. There's barley grown around Perth. It's malted at Porangorup. They have their own malting using a 16,000 rotating drum. They also make a peated malt using local peat, which has a very different flavor. This is not peated, but because it's different trees that make the peat, and the different plant life, of course it has a different smoke flavor. So their peat is distinct. They use stainless steel fermenters to make a typical 8% wort, and then tiny stills. The wash still is 1,800 liters, and the spirit still is 1,000 liters. So a tenth the size of your large scale liters. They only make about 100,000 liters of whiskey a year. They do aging in ex-bourbon, primarily Heaven Hills, Four Roses, Jack Daniels, and Old Forester, all relatively inexpensive barrels to acquire. And then their line burner line tends to have a finishing in various things: wine, port, sherry, both Australian and European versions. And there's about 20 different whiskeys in the line burner line, of which you will not find this one, the Albany Tawny Cask. This was given to me by a fellow that I met in Melbourne, Josh, who when I went and got that Highwayman whiskey from the wine shop with Juan. After that day, that afternoon that we had a lot of fun together, he sent this to the hotel. And the reason you can't get it is that it is a Barrel Lane Whiskey Club release. So Barrel Lane is an Australian whiskey club that gets custom bottlings done. And this is one of those, aged in ex-bourbon and finished in tawny port. So a port finished whiskey. So this is a 700 ml bottle instead of a 750, but that's pretty typical in Australia. 44%, about what you'd expect for a proper single malt. If you want, the only way you would get this would be to be a member of Barrel Lane. They are out of it, so you can't get it anyway. And the way you become a member of Barrel Lane is by signing up to their club. It's $135 Australian a month. That's about $90 US. Now, what have we got here? Well, we've got lots of color. They're very much in the amber rather than a dark red. The nose is this is a young whiskey, so you definitely smell the alcohol, a little light. No punch up front. That's nice. It drinks really well. Definitely a port. Like, you can taste that that's a port finish whiskey. You know it right away. Oh, lots of heat. Really warm going down. I did test this yesterday evening, so it was a good test. This is super drinkable. It's just pricey for what it is. I mean, granted, it's a club whiskey, so that's hard to come by at the best of times.
What's that mean? A club whiskey? What is that?
It means you have to be a member of the club to get an opportunity to buy the bottle. They literally did a custom bottling. Their name, the name of the club, is on the label. So they ran this run. They had this run made. We finished in this tawny port. This Albany Tawny Cask was only from Barrel Lane. So if you become a member of the club, you get opportunities to get these rare whiskeys. And there's probably 200 bottles of this ever made.
Wow.
And was never retailed. It does not have retail labeling on it.
Wow.
Because it was just sold directly to members of the club. But there are, like I said, there's 20 other single malt whiskeys called lime burners from Great Southern. So they don't appear to normally export. Like, they're not in regular stores. I found a few specialty shops in the US that will get you certain editions at times in the $200 to $300 range, which is an awful lot for a non-age specific whiskey. Like $300 for a 25-year-old, bargain. $300 for a 12-year-old, real expensive.
Yeah.
$300 for what is probably a 3-year-old, as tasty as it might be. That's pretty pricey. Look, if you're in Australia and you can pick one of the variants up for 150 Aussie dollars, so maybe $100, cool. It's a good single malt Australian whiskey from Western Australia. But you don't pay the markup unless you've got a fan, like somebody who just, you want to get them something unique. This is a legit, proper non-peated space-size style whiskey, port finish whiskey that you probably never had. And that, and you've got a friend like that where you want to bring something they never have it.
Yeah.
But you can't spend a lot of money on it. So you better like that guy.
And that is your whiskey segment for the week. Thank you, Mr. Richard Campbell.
Took you on a little run around Western Australia.
I love that. Have you been to Perth?
I have.
I have never been. I think.
And I was invited to go down to Margaret River to do wine tastings, and I didn't go. And
you did one since you've been on the show, right?
Yeah, I did a show from Perth at it was like 1:00 in the morning, and I'd just been to the local distillery there as well. And it was one of those ones where I asked the kind of questions where the tour guide stopped.
Oh yeah,
he's like, got the owner, and I got pulled out of the tour.
Yeah, we have a problem here.
Who are you again?
Security to aisle 3.
Very nice. Well, thank you, Richard, for all of that. Richard is at runnasradio.com. That's where you'll find his Run As Radio and .NET Rocks shows, the one he does with Carl Franklin. He's available for speaking anywhere in the world. Do you have a speakers bureau you work with, or do you just do it on your own?
Reach out to me. I know.
All right. Just go to runnasradio.com. He knows what to do. Paul Thurrott has no idea what to do, but that's why we love him.
Where am I? Who am I? You're now John F. Kennedy.
Not Mexico.
I don't know what's happening.
He's at Thurrott.com, THURRO.com, and his books are at leanpub.com, including Windows Everywhere and the Field Guide to Windows 11. If they're not on your bookshelf today, they should be on your bookshelf tomorrow. Thank you, Paul.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Richard. We do Windows Weekly every Wednesday, 11 a.m. Pacific, 2 p.m. Eastern, 1800 UTC. You can watch us live on 8 different channels. Of course, club members get that behind the velvet rope access, which actually every once in a while the sound drops out, the picture drops out. It's cool.
It couldn't be better.
Listen, you're watching the sausage being made, and sometimes it looks like we're making sausage.
Sometimes you get a little bit in your eye. It goes flick.
Well, maybe if you find troubles there, you can go to youtube.com because we stream there. Twitch.tv, we stream there. Kick, X, LinkedIn, Facebook, and TikTok. Everywhere, really. Watch us live if you want, but you don't have to. In fact, the vast majority of people just listen when they feel like it because it's a podcast. You can download a copy from twit.tv/WW, Windows Weekly, WW. There's video and audio there. There's also a link to the YouTube channel, which is video only, but that has a nice feature. It's very easy to clip and share. And if you want to share something, maybe one of the whiskey segments or whatever with a friend, that's a good way to do it. We do have a playlist that Kevin King puts together of all the whiskey segments. I mean, it takes a while, so I don't know.
Does he do like an AI DJ thing over it?
He does. Hey, this is Kevin King everybody. Here, and I'm bringing you the latest in brown liquor.
Good.
Dr. Johnny Fever here. You can find that playlist also at youtube.com/twit. Let's see what else. Oh, yeah, you could subscribe in your favorite podcast client. Please do that. And if you do, leave us a nice, 5-star review saying how great the show is, because we need to spread the word. We want everybody to know about Windows Weekly. Also, I forgot to mention it during our club plug, but if you are in the club and you go, when is the next book club? What is it? It's all in the newsletter. In fact, everybody should subscribe. It's free. twit.tv/newsletter. No salesman will call. You can just subscribe to it.
Every time you say what Mike is doing, I laugh out loud, but I mute myself so you don't hear it. But
Micah's crafting corner.
No, but
he's doing a Lego succulent.
That's it. That's amazing.
The Lego.
And what did John Ashley, Kevin?
I like that you say that like it makes sense.
He's doing something. John Ashley.
Lego succulent.
A Lego saguaro cactus.
You could boil that thing forever and you're never going to be able to eat it.
You're never going to eat it. If you don't look too closely, they look like the real thing. And then you see the dots and you go, oh, that's Lego.
You're like, okay, this is going to be crunchy style.
Look, I do not judge. That's the point of Micah's crafting
I do
corner.
judge. I got to talk to him.
No judging. No judging. All right. Hey, thank you, everybody. We enjoy doing this show. We're glad you enjoy it. And I hope you come back next week for all you winners and you dozers for another dose of Windows Weekly. Take care, guys.